from the Kingdom in Seattle, Washington, it's ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Tonight, Roger Clemens leads the Boston Red Sox against Ken Griffey Jr. and the Seattle Mariners. He is baseball's ultimate power pitcher. Molded in the image of boyhood hero Nolan Ryan, Boston's Roger Clemens is the dominant pitcher of his time with a league-leading 3 shutouts and 6 complete games. Jack Clark and the rest of Boston's big sluggers have not been hitting yet, and even the recent long ball exploits of Wade Boggs will be missing tonight. Boggs is out with an elbow injury. As the Red Sox slump continues, the reliance on Clemens intensifies. The Seattle Mariners, who've won 5 of their last 6, are built around young superstar Ken Griffey Jr. At age 22, Griffey can truly do it all. Playing with a talented, youthful exuberance, Griffey constantly amazes. Former Giant Kevin Mitchell is counted upon to add power to the mix, but so far the Mariners continue to wait. Tonight, Mariner ace Randy Johnson goes head-to-head with Clemens. The Kingdom forecast should call for heat in the 90s all night long. In Seattle tonight, all roads lead to the Kingdom. The big crowd is gathering. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball featuring Clemens and the Red Sox, Johnson and the Mariners. In the American League West, Seattle winning 5 of its last 6, still in the thick of things. Things are all bunched up. Meanwhile, in the East, the Red Sox losing their first 2 games here. They need a win today to keep pace with the top ball clubs in the East. Hello, everyone. I'm John Miller along with Joe Morgan. We're thrilled to be here at the Kingdom tonight, not only because we have Roger Clemens, but also Randy Johnson, 2 of the hardest throwers, great strikeout pitchers, guys who have no-hit stuff very often. You think about that when they take them out. But Roger Clemens, he perhaps is the best there is in baseball today. He is certainly the stopper for the Red Sox. And, Joe, that's what they need from Clemens tonight, having lost the first 2 here.
Well, John, Roger Clemens is something special. Roger Clemens won his 3rd Cy Young Award last year. Only Steve Carlton has won more. He has 4. Jim Palmer, Tom Seaver, and Sandy Koufax have won 3. They're all in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens is on his way there. When I think about Roger Clemens, I think about something that Yogi Berra said about Sandy Koufax. He said, I can understand how he wins 20 games every year, but I really don't understand how Roger Clemens ever loses 8 or 9 games. I look for one of these years for Roger Clemens to win like 20 games in a row.
Well, Roger Clemens did strike out 20 Seattle Mariners one night a few years back. That is the all-time record. And he has won 75% of his starts after pitching behind a Red Sox loss. So we'll see what he does tonight. Ken Griffey Jr. will be in there. He's the designated hitter tonight. We won't get to see him in center field. And that's a shame because all around he's one of the best there is, even at age 22.
Well, when most people think about Ken Griffey, they think about the plays that he makes day in and day out. This was a play he made last night. I think of Ken Griffey as a defensive specialist first. Forget about the 322 average, the 18 or 20 home runs, and 100 RBIs. This is what makes him great to me because you have to really want to play defense. This catch here really would overshadow the catch that Mays made in the World Series, if that would have been made in the World Series. Unfortunately, it was only in a game last night. But Ken Griffey Jr. is the best at his age I've ever seen.
All right, and he has hit well against Clemens. Now, Randy Johnson pitched only 2 innings and pulled himself out of the game last Tuesday night here, and his manager, Bill Plummer, was not pleased. He accused him in public of quitting in the ball club. It may be for Plummer's best interest in the future. Johnson gets it together tonight and soon in the near future because they're not winning, and Johnson is a key man.
Well, he definitely has to step forward now, not so much for the fans or for the public, but for his teammates. He's got to show his teammates, hey, I'm one of you. I'm going to be here with you thick or thin. We'll get it done. All
right, so Johnson tonight, and he pitched a no-hitter here just a couple of years ago against Detroit, maybe the hardest thrower in the American League, facing the Rocket, Roger Clemens. A great matchup. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Inside the dome, from the dome. Sunday Night Baseball from Seattle. This is John Miller and Joe Morgan, the starting lineup for the Red Sox. Jody Reed at second base. Mike Greenwell trying to bust out of a slump, the designated hitter. Tom Brunansky, right field. Jack Clark trying to get going. He's hitting cleanup at first base. Ellis Burks in center field. Young Bob Zupsik in left field, batting sixth. Tim Naring for the injured Wade Boggs at third base, batting seventh. Luis Rivera at shortstop, batting eighth. And Tony Pena is the catcher, batting ninth. And they'll be facing the tall left-hander Randy Johnson, 5-4, and was off to a great start. And when he's on, he is real tough to hit.
Well, you're correct, John. He got off to a 3-0 start, then he lost 3, and he's 5-4 right now. When he throws strikes or gets the ball around the strike zone, he's effective. He doesn't have to always throw strikes, but he has to be near the zone. Defensively for the Mariners, in right field will be Jay Buhner. Greg Briley takes over for Griffey tonight, who is DHing. Kevin Mitchell in left. Edgar Martinez at third. Omar Vizquel is at shortstop. Harold Reynolds, Gold Glove winner, at second. Pete O'Brien is at first. Dave Valley will do the catching, and hard-throwing Randy Johnson on the mound.
Randy Johnson, as you saw his numbers, real tough to hit. But he's not just a one-pitch pitcher, not just a fastball pitcher. Joe, evaluate him.
Has a good curveball, throws a good breaking ball, and fastball, I give him a 9. That's out of a possible 10. He has a good breaking ball, not a great one. I give him 7 on that. Control is his problem. We're using a scale of 1 to 10, so I give him 5. That's about average. And intangibles, I give him a 7 because he will battle you on the mound, and he will continue to throw hard even though he's not finding the strike zone.
And in my scale of how he's done against the Red Sox in the past, I give him a 0. Here is Jody Reed, the fastball in for a called strike. And already we're feeling the heat here in the Kingdome.
I liked your point there. We'll be in the 90s tonight. Both he and Roger Clemens, of course, will make the radar gun go above the 90 mark. 90 miles per hour, that is.
Jody Reed, one of the few Red Sox off to a strong start this year. And it is 0-2, and there's that breaking ball.
There's the breaking ball, and the breaking ball is twice as effective when, because of his fastball. Like I say, he doesn't have to really throw strikes with everything, but he has to get it near the strike zone.
Inside. And stay lively in there against Randy Johnson. He does not always know where it's going. You saw those last 2 starts for him against Boston. He was knocked out in the second inning each time last September. He got blasted. And it is 2-2. And again, we touched on it just briefly in the introduction to the broadcast tonight. But last Tuesday, pitching with 3 days rest against Baltimore here, after 2 innings and rather unsuccessful innings, he pulled himself out of the game. He just told his manager, says, "I got to get me out of there. I can't do it tonight." And Plummer was very upset about that and criticized him in the press afterward, saying that Randy Johnson had quit on his team. That is ball 3. Well, since that time, Plummer has gone public and said here Friday that, hey, I shouldn't have said those things in public. I should have kept it behind closed doors. But the point is, Randy Johnson is a key to the success of this ball club, and success of this ball club is the key for Bill Plummer's continued employment. And there is ball 4, and in one batter, Joe, we see the extremes of Randy Johnson. He went to 0-2, and then he lost it.
And he threw 4 consecutive balls. That's the point. I said he doesn't have to throw all strikes because he throws so hard. A lot of times you will get hitters to swing at bad pitches if you start the ball near the strike zone. You do not have a lot of time with his fastball to decide, is this in the strike zone or is this not in the strike zone? You have to react very quickly, so you end up swinging at a lot of bad pitches, so he has to just stay around the zone.
Here is Mike Greenwell. Buhner, nice catch at the warning track. That wall beckons as the big green wall at Fenway Park beckons right-handed power hitters. The big blue wall with the scoreboard in it here in right field at Seattle, 23 feet high, and it is oh so close. You can give a pitcher nightmares.
Well, this is a small ballpark by comparison, to the other parks in the, in the National League, we'll say. This ballpark allows you to hit the ball out in any direction, whether you're left-handed or right-handed.
Now, Tom Brunansky, veteran right-handed hitter, 1 out, 1 on, and Reed is back. Now, one thing about the Red Sox, they have been slumping, except for that man, Jody Reed. He's off to one of his best starts. But when they're not hitting home runs and not hitting well at all, it is very tough for them to score runs because they don't run well. Reed is tied for the team lead with 2 steals.
And he's been caught twice.
And it is 1 ball and no strikes now. Butch Hobson.
Actually, Reed has been caught 4 times, but the other people he's tied with, Burks, he's 2-2.
They just don't run well. Curveball in there for the strike. The Red Sox have stolen 15 as a team. They've been caught as a team 17. They don't run well, and according to that, they run too often.
But that's also been the problems they've had over the years of winning outside of Fenway Park. No speed.
There goes Reed. The throw down by Valley. Out!
Well, you have to give Dave Valley a lot of credit on this play. The ball is down, breaking off the plate down and in. He comes out firing and throws it right on the money. If the throw is anywhere else, Jody Reed is safe. He has a pretty decent jump, not a great jump, but watch where the throw is. Perfect throw. He catches him right on the left wrist. Valley fires. All Reynolds has to do is just catch the ball, and the tag is made automatically. You can't make a better throw than that.
And so 2 down, nobody on. The count to Brunansky, 1-2. Johnson for the windup. Strike 3. And just like that, the inning is over. So Johnson has 1 strikeout in 1 inning. Now we will see the Rocket, Roger Clemens, when we return. And tonight, for this interesting matchup for the Mariners, Greg Briley leads off in center field. Edgar Martinez, a very fine hitter at third base. The kid, Ken Griffey Jr., the designated hitter. Kevin Mitchell stuck on just 2 home runs, inexplicably. Pete O'Brien, he's got 11 home runs. Jay Buhner, big slugger, right field, batting 6th. Dave Valley is the catcher, hitting 7th. Omar Vizquel at shortstop. And Harold Reynolds, a speedster, is in 2nd, hitting 9th. And they'll be trying to get something going against a man who one night was the Mariners' worst nightmare. Yeah. He set the major league record for strikeouts in a 9-inning game. One cold night at Fenway a few years back, 20 Mariners he struck out.
And that's, for all those people who don't know for sure, that's 20 out of 27. I mean, a great pitcher, Roger Clemens. Look at it, innings pitched, only 52 hits, 74 strikeouts against 16 bases on balls. I mean, there's nothing more I can add than just looking at those numbers. He's an overpowering pitcher, has great control. And the defense that he'll have behind him that he doesn't have to use that much. Tom Brunansky is in right. Ellis Burks is in center. Bob Zupik is in center in left field. Tim Naring is in at third base. Rivera is a shortstop. Jody Reed. And Jack Clark starting at first base. He's hit both of his home runs this year while playing first base. Tony Pena is on the behind the plate, and Roger Clemens on the mound. That's Zupik in left field.
Oh, all of America knows who he is.
All right.
Whatever happened to Williams and Yastrzemski and Rice in that Red Sox tradition of outstanding left fielders? Here's Greg Briley to lead it off. Briley hitting .244. No home runs, 5 runs batted in. He's a role player, but has had a fair amount of success, relatively speaking, against Roger Clemens. Hence, he's in the lineup tonight. He'll be followed by Edgar Martinez and then Ken Griffey Jr. The Mariners are playing their best ball of the season right now. They've won 5 of their last 6. And according to manager Bill Plummer, the last 2-3 weeks they have gotten it together. And there he is, Bill Plummer. His ball club, even with the better play, 6 games under 500. Jody Reed, the second baseman, throws out Briley, and there is 1 away.
We've talked about the fastball of Randy Johnson and the other pitches he has. Let's take a look at Roger Clemens. Great fastball. He has a 9. He has an exceptional breaking ball, so we give him an 8. Control, very, very good. Another 8. And the intangibles of knowing how to pitch, knowing how to win, and wanting the ball, 9. He's almost perfect. I mean, that's almost a perfect pitcher there for you.
Now here is Edgar Martinez, hard-hitting third baseman, and it is strike 1. Edgar is hitting .295, 6 homers, 14 doubles, 3 triples, 23 RBIs. Pretty good on-base average. He hit a home run here the other night against Baltimore's Ben McDonald on a great curveball. He had to have been looking curve or had to know that it was coming. McDonald was astonished that Martinez could hit a curve as good as it was. And there's a base hit against Roger Clemens for him.
Yeah, and that's a breaking ball that hung a little bit. That wasn't one of Rogers' better breaking balls. You have to get that pitch down, and he did not. But Martinez is an excellent hitter.
You know, he is
the ball in play.
8 for 18 lifetime against Roger Clemens.
Well, he knows how to handle him. Tony Pena sets up outside. It's a breaking ball right in the middle of the plate. And Martinez does what you're supposed to do with it. See, it's a breaking ball. It just hangs there right in the middle of the plate. Beautiful swing.
Of all the hitters, now that Martinez with 18 at-bats, of all the hitters who faced Clemens at least with 18 at-bats or more, the Mariners have 3 of the best batting averages against Clemens on their ball club. And Griffey is another one of them.
I can tell you why.
Why?
They're young players that see well and can hit the good fastball. You have to be able to handle Roger Clemens' fastball to have any consistent success against him. And Ken Griffey can handle anyone's fastball. But when you're young and you see the ball well and you have a quick bat, you can usually handle the fastball.
Durwood Merrill, as the home plate umpire, called that pitch a strike in the inside. I don't think Griffey wants him to call pitches in there a strike with Clemens on the mound. There you see what he's done lifetime against Roger. Very good numbers. Of course, he's hit a lot of tough pitches hard. Back to the bag, Edgar Martinez. Edgar has stolen 3 bases. Kevin Mitchell is on deck. There's Edgar. Well, now he helped out Clemens. 0-2.
Well, that was an unusual pitch for Clemens. You will not see this pitch very often. It's his version of a changeup. He will throw you fastballs and hard sliders. Not a lot of off-speed pitches. That is a changeup. And Griffey was way out in front. He thought it was a fastball. You have to be ready for Rogers' fastball at all times, which obviously makes his other pitches that much more effective.
Gary Cederstrom, the umpire at first, signaling safe on the pickoff. Tim McClelland at second. Drew Coble at third. Edgar back again. And Griffey Jr. 8 home runs, 12 doubles, 30 runs batted in. Seems convinced that Edgar wants to take off here, and the count is 0-2. He's obsessed with Edgar Martinez.
Well, Roger has the high leg kick, and he knows if he doesn't hold the runners close and they want to go, it's going to cause problems for Tony Pena. Roger Clemens, like most power pitchers, really have a pretty big leg kick because that helps them get their drive. That's a pretty high leg kick, and he really drives toward the mound, toward the hitter. That's another changeup. So he's convinced that Griffey can handle his fastball and his slider, so he's going with a new pitch to Griffey, and that is the changeup. You see him spread his fingers in the slow motion replay there. You can see his fingers spread. That's the way you throw it. He throws his changeup.
See, Griffey has gotten hot here lately, as have the Mariners as a team. 1 out, 1 on, first inning. No score in the game. Clemens with Martinez leading from first. He struck him out.
Well, Griffey was completely fooled by the pitch. Again, Roger had set him up with a couple of changeups, and Griffey didn't know exactly what was coming. After bouncing a couple of pitches, he comes with a high pitch. We'll wait and see exactly where it is. It's a 90-mile-an-hour fastball up and out of the strike zone. He caught Griffey looking down for the off-speed pitch and came in with a high, hard one. No chance to hold up.
So now Clemens with his first strikeout. Johnson has one. And here is Kevin Mitchell. The whole baseball world is perplexed. Strike one, foul tip. The hard stuff right past him there. But how could Kevin Mitchell, everybody around baseball wants to know, how can he possibly have only 2 home runs?
I would wonder the same thing, but Mitchell is looking forward to facing Clemens. He says it'll be, you know, power against power, and he wants to have a challenge. He said he has not had a challenge yet here in the American League, and that no one really just comes after him, and he has not had a chance to be aggressive. Although there's the old saying, you know, you may like a fastball, but you don't like it when it's about 99 miles an hour.
0-2 the count to Mitchell. Clemens throwing that first pitch that was foul tipped at 95, and this last one that was fouled off into the seats, 97 miles per hour on our Jugs gun. We had Johnson as fast as 97 in his half of the inning.
Well, Kevin Mitchell is stepping in and out. I mean, one of the reasons he has had problems, he's still having a few problems with his right wrist. He had it operated on over the winter. And he's going to get a shot again tomorrow, a shot of cortisone in his wrist. But it is bothering him a little bit, but he does not use that as an excuse. He says he has just not handled the pitches that he's been given to hit. And that's something we want to get into later on. I had a long conversation with him before the ball game. And reading some of the articles and quotes that he has given the last couple of weeks, I can understand why he's having a few of the problems that he's had.
0-2 the count to Mitchell. Pete O'Brien, who hits Clemens well, is on deck. Edgar Martinez, the runner at first. He's running. He's in. The fourth steal of the year for Edgar Martinez.
You can get a good jump on Roger Clemens, and truthfully, 0-2 is a good time to take off, because if you are thrown out, Kevin Mitchell will start over. There he gets a good jump. Tony Pena comes out firing. It's a breaking ball away and down. That's a tough pitch to have to throw on. And he bounces it into second base. Martinez is safe. See, a little deep job there by Jody Reed. It didn't work.
Not quite. 2-2 the count. Now just take a base hit to the outfield to get a run home here. They might be able to sneak one in. Broken bat Blue somewhere could get a run home. 2-2 to Kevin Mitchell. You think of Mitchell, you think home run, but he also hit well for average. Right. He drove in runs. He did it all.
He is a good hitter. You know, he wasn't just a slugger. He's a good hitter as well. He will hit the ball to right center field every once in a while and in the gaps to drive in runs.
Pete O'Brien, Mariners home run leader, awaits his turn on deck. He's hoping to bat. 2 down, Martinez at second. No score first inning. 3-2 to Kevin Mitchell. Right to Jody Reed. That retires the side. No runs, 1 hit. Jack Clark, Ellis Burks, and Bob Zupsik coming up against Johnson. No score. John Miller and Joe Morgan, Sunday Night Baseball from the Kingdome in Seattle. No score after 1, or in this this bout of 2 hard-hitting heavyweights, Clemens and Randy Johnson, after the first round, and each with 1 punch-out in the first inning. Here's Jack Clark. Clark's season has gone much the same way Kevin Mitchell's season has gone, and if you're a Kevin Mitchell fan, there's a fastball for a strike. Clark had a similar start to his year last season with the Red Sox, and still, although he missed some 22 games or so, he ended up with 28 home runs. A lot of time left for both of them to get those home run totals up. There's that breaking ball from Johnson. 0-2 to Clark.
Well, remember, Jack Clark had played the American League before, but he was coming back from San Diego to the American League, so he had to adjust, I guess, a little bit first half of last year.
Another off-speed pitch from Johnson, and that's his second strikeout.
Well, he got out in front of Jack Clark very quickly. First pitch is a fastball that Jack Clark was taking all the way. It's right down the middle. Probably like to have that one back. Second pitch is a breaking ball on the inside corner for strike 2. And the third pitch is another breaking ball, but it goes off the plate inside.
And that was strike 3. Now, here is Ellis Burks, and he takes the curveball, and it is too low, ball 1. No score, top of the second. Zupsik is on deck.
Easy for you to say.
What did I say? 2-0 the count.
Zupsik. I'm going to get it right.
Zupsik.
We better remember his name. He's leading the Red Sox in hitting.
Not many guys ever in big league history, his last name started with a Z. Yeah. Zisk.
He could hit, too.
He was a very good hitter.
Yeah, Richie's in.
And, in fact, right at the end of his career, played here in Seattle for the Mariners.
In fact, he's one of the best right-handed hitters, just pure hitters, that I think I ever saw. I mean, he could hit.
He's one of those lumber company guys in the 70s in Pittsburgh there for a while. 2-1 to Burks. Up, and it hits a speaker. That one headed for the seats, and it hit a speaker. And it still landed in the seats. But if a ball hits a speaker, it is still in play. There's the speaker it hit. In other words, the ball might be heading for the seats, but hit a speaker. If a guy can catch it as a result of that, well, it's as if the wind blew it back in. The speaker is in play. I mean, anything else you'd hit in foul ground means the ball's just a foul ball. Burks fouls this one back. It is 2-2. One night here, Willie Horton hit what he thought was his 300th career home run. He went into the trot. The crowd was going nuts. And it hit a speaker in left field, and he got a single out of it. 2-2 pitch. Ooh, that was close. The curveball missing. 3-2. Ellis Burks, the forecast superstardom for him. There's Zupsik on deck. And it just hasn't happened for Ellis yet.
He's had a lot of injuries the last couple of years, and he's still bothered by a back problem every once in a while.
That is foul right past Zim. Boston's third base coach this year, Don Zimmer. Back in Boston. So it is 3-2 to Ellis Burks. There's Zim. One-time manager of the Red Sox. And most recently was the manager of the Chicago Cubs. Left side of the infield playing Burks to pull. There's the curve outside, the second walk. Allowed by Randy Johnson. 1 out, 1 on. And now Zupsik will come up.
When you watch Johnson, you can't help but wonder if maybe the pitch sequences are not exactly right. By that I mean, if he's throwing the breaking ball over for a strike, which he has been able to do tonight, why not use it a little bit more? If you're throwing the fastball for a strike, use it. There's no rule that says you have to mix every other pitch. One has to be a curveball, one has to be a fastball. You have to get the hitter out. That's the important thing. And it just seems that he uses too many different pitches.
Runner goes. The ball is butted. It's rolling. And foul. Bob Zupsik dropped a pretty nice bunt down.
To finish my point, he uses some pitches when he's not, he wasn't throwing strikes with the breaking ball when he first started the game. Now he is. Use the breaking ball. Whatever you have that you're throwing strikes with, if you're Randy Johnson, is the pitch that you should use, because both of those pitches are excellent pitches. But you do not have to go out there and mix them up when you have an overpowering fastball and an exceptional curveball. You have to mix pitches when you have a mediocre fastball, mediocre curve, and mediocre change. Then you have to use all of your pitches so well. But you get in rhythm throwing one pitch, use it.
1 strike to count to Zupsik. It's a little bit low. These great hard throwers sometimes get it in their head that they have to prove that they can pitch, that they can mix it up, they can fool a hitter.
Yeah.
You used to say that about Sam McDowell.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. And Sam is a great example. First time I faced Sam McDowell, he threw 2 fastballs. I didn't see him yet for strike 2, and then he threw me a slow curveball.
And what'd you do with that?
Grounded a weak single up the middle. But the point was, if he'd have thrown me another fastball, I was out. But I guess people feel that you have to mix your pitches too much. And I'm not a believer in that. I believe that if you have an overpowering pitch, you use that pitch. I mean, if he gets in the 9th inning today with the winning run on second base, what pitch is he going to go with? His fastball, I guarantee it. And that's the pitch that he should use the most. That's his best pitch.
Burks at first. He was running on the bunt and run earlier in the count. That is called strike 2, and Burks was staying put. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Jim Fregosi, now the manager of the Phillies, will see him next Sunday night in Philadelphia. He said he had a very good average against Sam McDowell, but not because he could hit him. He said exactly what you said. He says, he blew me away the fastball, and I never even hit a foul ball against it. But always with 2 strikes, I knew he'd throw me a changeup or something. There's a ball fouled away by Zupsik. So I wouldn't even think about swinging until 2 strikes when I get that changeup or that slow curve, and I'd always get a double.
And you know what Sam's explanation was for that? Some people ask me about it. Sam's explanation was, it's too easy just to blow him away. I want to be a complete pitcher.
Enough of a challenge.
Right.
Johnson into the count to Zubcic. And Burks is back. Burks, 2 steals, caught twice. Jody Reed, who attempted a steal in the first inning, 2 steals, now been caught 5 times.
Johnson has been using a slide step to eliminate Burks' lead and jump at first base.
And again he does. Down the left field line. Base hit. Mitchell chasing. Burks to third. Zimmer will hold him up. And Zubcic has a double. And Joe, I can't help but go back to what you've just been talking about. Zubcic had given no indication that he could do anything with the hard stuff from Johnson. He threw that off-speed pitch, and Zubcic said, thank you very much.
And again, he changes his motion. He goes with the slide step, which is obviously not his strong suit. And there's a little breaking ball. It's down. It's not such a bad pitch as far as location, but timing-wise it is. The ball was down and toward the middle of the plate.
Now Johnson is in trouble. He could use a strikeout here. The infield comes in halfway in the turf. The squeeze was not on there. He showed bunt. The runner from third was not coming, Ellis Burks, and the pitch was taken finally for a strike.
Well, maybe Tim Naring just wanted to see one pitch. It was 95-mile-an-hour fastball that he did see, so now he maybe figures he's ready for it.
No scores, second inning. Runners at second and third, 1 out. And it is 0-2.
I think it would be awfully tough to spot a strikeout pitcher 1 pitch with a runner at third and less than 2 outs. I mean, if you spot Roger Clemens 1 strike or Randy Johnson, all of a sudden it's 0-2, which is the count on Tim Naring.
Tim Naring hitting .234 in there tonight in place of the injured Wade Boggs. Right now, he's a utility-type player. Plays third, short, and second, although Reed is playing all the games at second base right now. There's Boggs. He's hoping to take batting practice tomorrow and see if he's well enough to play when they get to Oakland. He's got problems with the inflammation of his ulnar nerve in his right elbow. That curveball missed a little bit low, apparently. 1-2 now.
That was a good pitch to try to get him to chase it. If he hits it, he's probably going to hit it on the ground. Now, that was a good 0-2 pitch. Now it's 1-2. You have to go with your strength. You need a strikeout.
Luis Rivera is on deck. Boston threatening to go ahead in the second inning. 2-2. Well, he did. Came right back to the breaking ball again.
Well, he shook off Dave Valley. You can see that as he was getting his sign. Valley wanted the fastball. But see, now what you do is, if you're Tim Naring, you should be smart enough to know that the fastball is going to come down. I mean, he's missed with 2 breaking balls. A fastball is coming.
There it is. Popped up, shallow right, could be trouble. Mueller's there. And in one hop, he throws it into Valley as Burks goes back to third. That one just stayed up so long, and Mueller was able to run it down into very shallow right. The infield was in, and it's a little more difficult for those guys to go out and get it.
There comes a time when you're, as a hitter, you have to realize, you know, pitchers tried to do this to me. He can't. He missed with 2 of them. He doesn't want to go to 3-2. What is he going to do? He's going to come with the fastball. And you have to get a better swing, or you have to get a better than a 2-strike swing at the pitch with a runner at third and less than 2 outs.
Now 2 down. Runners still at second and third. Luis Rivera hitting .250. No home runs. 8 runs batted in. The infield backed up again. Very high, ball 1. Now last year, the last 2 times he faced the Red Sox, remember, Randy Johnson was not around long enough to get the third out of the second inning. He went 1 2/3 innings each time. His earned run average against them lifetime is 10.45. 2-0. On deck is Tony Pena, the veteran catcher. So Johnson trying to get through that second inning, which would be a milestone for him against the Red Sox.
He's doing something that most pitchers do nowadays, which I don't quite understand. He's pitching from a stretch with 2 outs, you know, and the runner at third. You obviously have better rhythm with your full windup.
In other words,
why do you pitch?
If he feels he's at his best this way, why doesn't he pitch that way all the time?
Exactly. You can understand it with one out and a runner at third because you're trying to keep the runner at third close for the, play at the plate. But with 2 outs, really the guy you want is at the plate. So you want to be in the best position, best rhythm to get the guy out who's hitting at the plate.
Now 3-1 to Rivera.
But I must admit, he's still throwing hard from the stretch. I mean, he's still up around 96, 97 miles an hour.
Randy Johnson.
But you find a lot of pitchers doing that these days.
3-1 to Rivera. The runners lead. Back foul will make its way back through the maze of speakers and wires and in amongst the spectators. 3-2 the count. The Boston Red Sox, the real enigmatic ball clubs in all of baseball. The Red Sox always known for slugging, scoring the runs, and not pitching well. The Red Sox are one of the worst scoring teams in all of Major League Baseball right now. They're averaging about 3.7 runs per game. But they are pitching better than almost any team in Major League Baseball. 3-2 pitch. Right side and right through. Base hit. Burks has scored. Here comes Zupsick. The throw way offline by Buhner. 2-0 Boston.
Buhner's throw, if accurate, would have had Zupsick at the plate, but it was up the line. Valley tried to make the catch and tag in one motion and was not able to get him as Zupsick as he went by. See, here's the throw. It's all the way in the air. Plenty of time if it's near the plate. It is wide of the plate near third base, and Durwood Merrill makes sure everybody knows he's safe. Nice play by Valley, actually, to try to make the tag as he made the catch, but not in time.
Now Tony Pena, 2-0 Boston ahead. Strike one. Pena, a terrible slump, hitting only .205. Well, that's the kind of a hit the Red Sox have not gotten many of so far this year. Clutch 2-out hit with men in scoring position. They have been stranding a lot of base runners. And it's not that they've had that many base runners in the first place. They're hitting only .241 as a team. Only 17 home runs had the Red Sox hit in 44 games. Astounding. Well, they've got 2 on the board against Johnson. And Kerr misses badly.
2 is often enough for the Rocket. Has a 1.65 earned run average entering the ball game tonight, so you can't give up more than 2 runs too often and expect to win.
Luis Rivera back to the bag over there. Rivera has stolen 1 base this year. Luis Rivera turned out to be just the right man for the job there. I mean, he got it done. And for the year, he does lead the Red Sox in batting average with men in scoring position, .333. Of course, I guess that means that you're not going well if he's the guy who's the best in the club.
Well, that's true. I mean, when you have the Jack Clarks, the Tom Brunanskis, the Greenwells, and the Burks, and, of course, Boggs, you have to realize that these are the guys who are paid the big money to drive in runs, and they usually do get it done. Johnson, this inning, has, after he gave up the single to right field to drive in the 2 runs, he works from the third base side of the rubber already, and now he seems to be falling more off to the third base side now than he was before. And that is one of the reasons I think his ball is going more towards the outside and moving away. He's changed his delivery just in the last 5 or 6 pitches.
Bill Plummer is manager, and he is suffering right along with Johnson now, watching Johnson throw his 31st pitch of this inning alone. And the count is 3-1 to Tony Pena. A walk got the rally started. Ellis Burks with 1 out, drew the walk. There's Reed, the leadoff man, on deck. And Zupsick hit a double, and Rivera got the clutch 2-out single to bring them both home. 3-2 now to Pena. pushed up towards center field here at the Kingdome. Let's see. Randy Johnson studying that sign from Dave Valley. There's Rivera ready to go in anything here. He'll be running with the pitch, in fact. He goes. Struck him out. That is the third strikeout for Johnson. 2 more here in the inning, but 2 runs for the Boston Red Sox. 2 hits and 1 man left. Zupsik scoring number 2 despite the valiant attempt of Dave Valley. The anniversary of his unassisted triple play. Thanks, John. I knew Johnny Noon, and right up until his death a couple of years ago, he was very active as a scout for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was a one-time manager, managed the Yankees briefly, the Cincinnati Reds. Here's Pete O'Brien leading it off against the Rocket. 2-0. The Mariners are trailing now to the Red Sox. O'Brien is the only man to have hit a home run against Clemens all year. Roger has now pitched 83 innings. And O'Brien's been hitting home runs against a lot of people. He's got 11 of them. 11 big flies.
Yeah, it's either big fly or nothing. He's hitting .212, but he has 11 home runs, 27 runs batted in, so he has done a good job in the power department.
2-1 the count. Shot right to Clark. And there is 1 away. See the big crowd of the Kingdome tonight. Roughly 40,000 expected. Here's Jay Buhner coming up. I was mentioning Johnny Noon. That unassisted triple play ended a game. Oh, top of the 9th inning. 2 men on. A 1-run lead. And the guy hits a shot. The runners were going, I guess. He makes the catch. He tags out the runner going from first. And then runs right over to second and tags the bag for the triple play. And the story was that the shortstop was calling for the ball, right?
Yeah, right.
Johnny, throw it. Johnny, throw it. And Johnny ran over and tagged the bench and says, no, I'm running right into the Hall of Fame on this one. Buhner pops it up. Shallow right. Reed out. And Brunansky in. And Buhner is promptly retired, too. Johnny Noon always denied that. Said he never said that. Well, I mean, you don't often see unassisted triple plays. I think in the entire history of baseball, there's 8 of them. The last one was in the 60s. Ron Hansen turned 1. Here is Dave Valley.
Watching Roger Clemens just seems like all of a sudden, after getting 2 runs, he has speeded up everything. He has not taken as much time in between pitches. He has just seems like, hey, I got a 2-run lead now. I've got to protect it. And that's the makeup of a great pitcher. Fastball in. He has not been pitching inside much tonight. That one is inside. And that's a trait that Tony Pena brought with him to Boston. He made the pitchers pitch inside a lot more than they ever had before. See, that sets up the slider over the outside corner. You see Tony Pena motion with both hands like square up to the plate. See there, that's what he's saying right there. Square up and pick me up. Meaning square up your delivery to the plate. Fastball away.
Oh. Too quick. 2-2. The ball foul tipped into Pena's glove.
That one is 92 miles an hour, and that's unusual. This is a high fastball right by Valley. Usually the fastball that's up is faster than the fastball that's low because of the release point.
Deep right center field. Brunansky back to that wall. It's off the wall. It's a double for Dave Valley.
It's unusual for me to see someone hit Roger Clemens' high fastball. That is a high fastball. That one gets the middle of the plate. Maybe that's why he was able to handle it. It was supposed to be outside part of the plate, but it was the middle of the plate. But a high fastball from Roger Clemens or Randy Johnson usually is faster, which this one was 96 miles an hour, than the fastball that's down low.
Valley has been in a hot streak, and now we understand just how hot he is. fastball from Clemens up. Valley, by the way, is now 3 for 11 in his career against Clemens with a home run. Here it is Omar Vizquel, and it is ball 1 from Roger Clemens. In the 4 games since Dave Valley was activated from the disabled list, just got back, he has 8 hits in 14 at-bats. Foul back. 1-1.
John, the reason the fastball is fastest usually when it's high is because the arm speed of the pitcher is at its fastest point when he releases it and the ball's going to be high.
And it is 1-2 now to Vizquel.
See, Tony Pena sets up on the inside. The ball hits the exact part of the plate that he was pointing to, right on the inside corner.
Runner at second, 2 down. 2-0 Boston. And it is 2-2 to Vizquel. He's another guy who's been real hot. He's gone 8 for 12 in his last 5 games. This week, the team's been hot, and Vizquel and Valley have been leading the way, and Bill Plummer's calling them the Killer V's.
I know what a Killer V is, but I don't know what is a Killer V.
Valley and Vizquel.
Oh, okay.
It's a peculiar phenomenon found only in the Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Harold Reynolds, you saw, on deck, hoping to bat in the inning, second inning. Back to Clemens. That's the inning. Vizquel is retired. 1 hit, 1 left. 2-0 Boston. Top of the order coming when we return. Oh, Seattle, and yes, Mount Rainier, standing sentinel over the beautiful Emerald City here in the great Pacific Northwest. It was visible today, as were the Olympic Mountains. There's the Kingdome right near the shores of the Elliott Bay, which today was glittering in the brilliant sunlight and was dotted with sailboats. Base hit for Jody Reed on the first pitch from Randy Johnson. Reed with a big turn at first, but Mitchell gets it back into Reynolds, and Reed will hold with a single.
Nice play by Mitchell to hold him to a single there. You remember seeing the play Mitchell made in St. Louis where he ran across the foul line and caught the ball barehanded and reached back?
Have I seen it? I've seen it 173 times, Joe. Here is Mike Greenwell. Flied out deep to right his first time. Runner at first. Curveball misses. Mike Greenwell, where has the power gone?
The first pitch, first at bat, he threw Greenwell fastball in, and Greenwell got jammed a little bit, hit it to right field. He comes back with a curveball to start this at bat. Hit fastball on the outside corner. Greenwell, if you're a left-hander, you have a good fastball, as Johnson does. Normally, you do like to stay in tight under the hands.
See that? The last time Greenwell hit a home run was against Randy Johnson last September. This guy used to hit a lot of home runs.
Right. Set him up with a fastball away. Now they're going to throw him a slider.
Into right center. Riley. You know what his nickname is?
Who, Greg?
Yeah.
No.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee Briley.
Yep. You think he likes that nickname? 1 out, 1 on.
Is that from spanking our gang or something, Pee-wee? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a sore subject with him.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't bring it up.
Pee-wee doesn't like you to ask him about it.
Oh, okay.
Here's Tom Brunensky. His nickname is definitely not Pee-wee. Bruno. He's a great big guy.
Nicknames are coming back into baseball.
Now to play off to the right. What was your nickname? I mean, the one you liked. The one you would answer to.
Joe, it's time to hit.
Joe Morgan, MVP. How about that?
Yeah, all right, I'll go for that.
Favorite nickname, MVP.
Yeah.
Brunensky was caught out on strikes his first time. And it is 0-2 this time. 2-0 Boston ahead, third inning. One out, one on. Clark on deck.
John, we talked about how far to the third base side that Randy Johnson was falling before. Now he's going almost straight at the hitter, and he's throwing strikes.
Oh, look out.
Well, he's not the first base, maybe, but when he steps at the hitter, he's throwing strikes.
Almost threw a strike into the first row there. Tom Brunansky didn't look like he was going to play much. They were trying to trade him where it was. Valley held it, strike 3.
He caught it right in the edge of the webbing.
Third baseman, number 25, Jack Clark.
Fastball up and just barely in the edge of the webbing. He's trying to make sure he doesn't drop it. 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
Now Jack Clark, the hitter. He struck out his first time. Johnson has the strikeout pitch working. That's 4 strikeouts for Randy in 2 2/3 innings. 2 down, Reed at first. And strike 1. Nice breaking ball.
It's kind of interesting that Jack Clark was a great breaking ball hitter when I played with him in 1981 and 82 in San Francisco. And all of a sudden, he's had a lot of problems with the breaking ball the last 2 years. I have a firm belief that you have to be able to hit the fastball in order to hit the breaking ball. I mean, that sounds a little strange, but the reason being, if you don't have to worry about the fastball, then you can handle the breaking ball. If you have to worry about the fastball, you can't handle the breaking ball.
Well, is he a little more worried now than he used to be about the fastball?
That's my theory here, is he's a little more worried about the fastball. Maybe he's a little older. He thinks his bat is a little slower, so he worries more, and there's a fastball right by him. Couldn't do that a couple of years ago.
2 strikes a count. 2 down. He struck him out. Never threw him a strike.
Right. That's the good point.
2 sliders down, a fastball up. Short work of Clark. 5 Ks for Randy. Tonight, 8 o'clock, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. We hope you will be with us. The Cardinals, I saw them on Memorial Day, Joe, and what an exciting ball club Joe Torre has built there. Guys like Langford and Gilkey, and of course, a few old favorites as well, such as Ozzie Smith, who earlier this week got his 2,000th hit, and he was so proud of that, Joe. And
that's something to be proud of.
Indeed. John Kruk, by the way, had 3 more hits today for the Phillies, who defeated Houston at the Astrodome. 2 strikes down to Reynolds.
As a left-handed hitter, it's very difficult to handle Roger Clemens when he can throw the fastball right on the inside corner, as he did there, because it opens up the outside so much for you, right? And that's what happens. You automatically, your front shoulder goes to try to catch up with that fastball on the inside part of the plate, and he throws you a breaking ball or something else. This is going to be a strike 3. Watch Harold Reynolds' front shoulder. Well, we don't get a look at it, but it's already gone. You can see his front shoulder is completely gone there. That's because he was trying to open up to get to the fastball inside.
I'm watching his shoulder now.
It's gone.
Gone. Out of there. And so is Harold.
Yeah.
Here's Briley, the leadoff hitter. Strike 1 to him. Clemens with 2 strikeouts. This one right along the line. And let it roll. And it's rolling, rolling. It hits the bag. A fair ball.
And Roger walks over and bounces it off the bag.
I'd say that ball went 90 feet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Third baseman, number 11, Edgar Martinez.
Well, we talked about the fact that Briley has hit well against Clemens, and this one's another knock. We will not have a pitcher on it tomorrow in the scorecard book. It'll say base hit. And we add another one to his total against Roger Clemens. There's Roger bouncing it off the bag. A little irritated about that hit.
Doesn't seem fair somehow. But that is the 3rd hit for the Mariners.
He doesn't get upset when they catch line drives that the players hit.
O'Brien hit a shot back in the 2nd right to Jack Clark. There's Briley. Now, Briley can cause some trouble on the base paths. He's stolen 5 bases in 6 attempts. The Mariners have stolen 1 against Roger so far tonight. And a very fine hitter is at the plate right here, Edgar Martinez. He's a .444 lifetime hitter against Clemens, including his single tonight.
Well, Roger Clemens made sure Briley wasn't going to run there because he didn't stop. He just stepped up on the mound and threw it.
You mean a balk was missed?
Yes, it was missed on that one. You calling that a complete stop there?
You know, Clemens himself, I was talking to him in spring training, and he was watching a tape of an old ball game from '86 in the World Series when he pitched. He said the first thing that jumped at him was he kept saying to himself, "I'm not stopping."
Right.
There's a balk.
And there was one, you know, the first pitch especially.
And Briley is back on the umpires.
But, you know, if he pitches like that all the time, normally they will not call a balk.
And Briley back again. Now the big guys are coming up here for Seattle. Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., Kevin Mitchell, Pete O'Brien, Jay Buhner. They have some thunder in this batting order, particularly in this ballpark.
The only time Roger stops is when he throws to first base. But, I mean, that's a veteran pitcher's move. I mean, he will stop, so the umpire says, well, he's stopping, and then throws to first base. And when he goes to the plate, he just pauses, so to speak. That's a complete stop.
Back at 2. They do. And the inning is over just like that. 6-4-3. 2-0 Boston. Burks, Supsick, and Nehring coming up. Sunday Night Baseball from Seattle. The Mariners and the Red Sox. The Red Sox trying to avoid a sweep here at the hands of the Mariners. And they've got Roger Clemens out in front, 2-0 as we go to the 4th. Randy Johnson to Ellis Burks, ball 1. Now Burks walked in the 2nd, and that started a 2-run Red Sox rally. Ellis Burks, still only 27 years of age. Enormous promise. Last year never got it going. Hit only .251. But for the 3 years prior to that, Joe, .294 average, .303, .296, home runs, RBIs, steal bases.
Yeah.
O'Brien to Johnson.
Johnson late covering. You know, he falls off to the third base side of the mound, so he has a longer run than most pitchers, and he does not get to first base in time. There's the lead from O'Brien. He's already late, and Burks beats it out. See, he's running neck and neck. Burke can see that he's going to be able to beat him if he hustles, and he does so.
Good call by Cederstrom. And Burks, who also called himself safe. Here is Zupsick, and that is ball 1. Zupsick was a football player in high school, and he was good enough to have been recruited by Penn State and University of Pittsburgh. He's from Pennsylvania. And look at that. He's got some Zupsick fans are here tonight. There goes Burks. The ball is bunted. Johnson just his time.
That's an unusual play there to bunt with speed at first base. You usually bunt and run because the runner at first base doesn't run well, and you want to give him a head start, and so your bunter doesn't have to make as good a bunt.
Well, we've seen it twice with this combination, right?
Miscommunication or someplace. He's running with the pitch, and the bunt is laid down by Zupsick, and the throw to first base, and he's retired. But again, normally you bunt and run with runner at first who does not run well.
They tried that back in the 2nd inning, and Zupsick fouled the bunt down the third baseline, and then they took the bunt off, and he hit a double. Here's Nehring. Curveball misses, ball 1. 2-0. The Red Sox ahead in the last of the 4th, or the top of the 4th. Randy Johnson got 5 strikeouts already. Roger Clemens with 2 strikeouts, but Clemens leads the game. That's a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Unlike home runs, I mean, sometimes when they get those big strikeout totals, it seems the pitcher's equivalent of the home run, but it is not. It's an out.
No, exactly.
Home run, that's a run on the board.
Yeah.
Strikeout, you get the same thing as if you got a pop out.
Yeah, 1 less hitter.
Yeah. 2-1 the count. Nolan Ryan has struck out 10 in a game or more. How many times? Over 200 times. You see, Johnson's worked hard already. 62 pitches, only in the 4th inning. How many of those 200-plus 10 strikeout games did Ryan win? I mean, it was not always a high strikeout total meant a win. Harold Reynolds.
He was shading his eyes from the sun there. He forgot he's indoors.
I guess shallow right center is the sun field here in the Kingdom.
It's a pop-up, too high. There he's shading his eyes from the sun. Obviously he's shading it, I guess, from the lights here, but...
Or you're signaling for a fair catch.
Yeah, this is the Kingdom. You do not want to get run over by one of the defensive backs if you're making a fair catch.
This is also the home of the Seahawks, of course, of the NFL. Luis Rivera. Now with 2 down and runners at 2nd and 3rd in the 2nd. He's singled home both. Now he comes up with 2 down and a runner only at 2nd. He tries for an encore performance of his clutch hitting. Rivera hitting .257. He always seems to open the year as the guy that they don't want to play.
Yeah.
And he always ends up playing almost every day at shortstop with the Red Sox. Curveball misses. Last year, Naring was going to be the shortstop. Had a horrendous slump and then hurt his back. Or the back problem was part of the slump, really. Had surgery, and there was Rivera out there the rest of the year. Doing something right. Hit .258 last year. 3-0 the count. Tony Peña's on deck. Now Johnson looking a little upset with Durwood Merrill there.
Well, he's had about 4 or 5 pitches lately that he's questioned.
2 runs, 4 hits allowed, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He'd like to avoid walking Rivera, the 8th place hitter. 3-0. 3-1.
Since Rivera has hit well with runners in scoring position, you might wonder why he was not allowed to hit 3-0 there, since he does lead the team in hitting, as you mentioned, with runners in scoring position.
Well, anytime I wonder stuff like that, I ask you.
I don't know the answer. If I was man, I'd have let him hit.
3-2.
He had a better pitch to hit 3-0 than he did 3-1. 3-0, sometimes the pitcher will take a little bit off to throw a strike. And this is a good pitch on the inside corner, the inner inside corner.
Yeah.
And that's a tougher pitch to hit than the one down the middle.
Burks ready to run in anything with 2 down. There he goes. He's already running. Ball 4, and Burks steals 3rd.
Well, of course, Johnson was not paying much attention to him. His concentration was on the hitter, so Burks took advantage of that.
Zimmer over talking to Burks. Burks with his 3rd steal of the year. Well, Hobson is unveiling his running game tonight. They've had 1 runner thrown out trying to steal. Now Burks has stolen. They've tried to bunt and run a couple of times. Here is Tony Peña. They lead the game 2-0. Rivera at 1st, Burks at 3rd. Peña struck out his first time. So he helped Johnson out a little bit there.
If you're Johnson in this situation, that's where you should just continue to throw Tony Peña. He is a free swinger, and he will swing at the high fastball.
Randy Johnson, 6 feet 10 inches tall, the tallest man ever to play in the big leagues. Although, what was it, a week or 2 ago, another fellow 6'10" named Hillman, Eric Hillman.
This will be a fastball, whether it's high or not, we'll see. Fastball down.
1-1 the count. So Johnson no longer the tallest man ever. Dan Warthen, the pitching coach of the Mariners, spent a great deal of time with Johnson this winter. They worked out together, worked on things together. That breaking ball is high, 2-1. One of the things they worked on was Johnson's delivery, his mechanics, his follow-through. The thing you were talking about earlier, Joe, the way he falls off the mound and seems to lose his grasp of the strike zone. And Warthen worked over and over again during the winter with Johnson on making himself a little more compact out there.
He does a couple of things very good, and that is he picks up the plate very quickly before he delivers the ball. And you see a lot of guys looking around different places and pick up the target late. He picks up the target very well, which is probably something they've really worked on because he has been so erratic over his career as far as always being able to throw strikes. But he picks up the target very quickly. If you watch, when he starts his motion, he will pick up the target right there.
And he went back to that high fastball, and Pena fouled it back into the upper deck. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 down, 2 on. Burks the runner at third. And Rivera, the runner at first. O'Brien on the bag with him over there.
This is where I asked earlier in the ball game about what would a pitcher do in certain situations and pitch sequences. Pena has not handled the high fastball, but they're going to throw him a slider. And he gets him.
Strike 3, says Cederstrom. Moments after you said it.
Yeah. Well, the slider off the plate, which is a place to throw it if you have a good hard slider from a left-hander. Tony started and then tried to get out of the way, but too late. 2-0 Red Sox.
Griffey coming up. Along with Joe Morgan in our official ESPN headsets. And this is the official Joe Morgan golf tee, which he used today to soundly trounce. Who was it you golfed with today?
William F. Russell, the greatest basketball player in the history of the NBA.
Wow, I'm impressed. And you beat him out on the links?
I got lucky.
That's what you told him beforehand, right? All right. Now, as we talk about the superstars of the links, Joe Morgan and Bill Russell. We're back into some hardball action here as Ken Griffey Jr. comes up against the Rocket. Roger Clemens. Here's Griffey. He struck out his first time. That is strike 1 this time.
And Griffey still does not like the first pitch call by Durwood Merle. He was upset with the first time up. He got a fastball inside. It was called a strike.
That's in the dirt. 1 ball, 1 strike. His dad, no longer an active player, but he works in the Mariners organization as a minor league instructor and also does some television work as a color commentator with Dave Niehaus and Ken Levine on Mariners telecasts.
Roger Clemens has thrown Griffey the only changeups he's thrown the entire ball game. Good fastball, just misses, and he's throwing him fastball, changeup, fastball, changeup. Those are the pitches he's using. He hasn't thrown him any breaking balls yet. And I think it's a very good way to pitch Griffey with the fastball and the change. Tony Pena giving a sign, and you want to go with a fastball away.
Foul away by the kid. Junior, they call him here. Ken Griffey Jr., only 22 years of age. Last year, he had 327.
And had 100 RBIs for the first time in his career.
He didn't have Kevin Mitchell hit behind him last year.
Here's the changeup again.
Deep right field.
See ya.
2-1, Boston. Junior goes deep.
Roger Clemens walked to the back of the mound, picked the rosin bag up, and flipped it between his legs. He knows he made a real big mistake. This is a changeup, but he gets it right in the middle of the plate, and he also slows his arm down. Slows his arm speed down. There he looks in at Tony Pena and says, "Why did you call that pitch?" Watch, it's a changeup. Right, you see the rotation on the ball, not much, but it's right in the middle of the plate, and Griffey really tags it. He knows it's a home run right away.
Well, Pena may have called it, but he didn't force Roger to. Roger's the one who threw it. Here's Kevin Mitchell, slider on the outside, 0-1. Now, what Griffey has just done, his 9th home run of the year, Mitchell has only done twice all year. And they're waiting for that explosion, which seems inevitable.
He will get hot. I mean, I just believe that.
Whoa.
See, right, there we see the problems that Kevin has had. Swinging at bad pitches. His first at bat tonight, he actually handled Roger pretty well. He did not swing at the slider outside or the fastball off the plate. See, that's a ball. You can't hit that. If Roger Clemens throws you that pitch, 90 times out of 100, you're not going to be able to hit it. So you have to get a strike, or else you're going to be in trouble with Roger.
0-2 the count. And 1-2. Mitchell grounded out to second his first time. He's 0 for 1. Well, this big crowd was kind of quiet. Ken Griffey Jr. got him back into the game. The crowd and his team. And the Mariners are the only team to have hit a home run against Clemens this year. O'Brien hit one in Boston. That's a foul. Comes back and he hits a wire. Not a speaker wire this time, the wire that holds the backstop. The ball bounces back onto the field, and Tony Pena goes to pick it up.
John, one of the things that happens when you come from the National League to the American League is that in the National League, it's basically, they say it's a fastball league. So you're aggressive, you attack the baseball. When you come to the American League, you get a lot of sliders, a lot of changeups. So you slow your bat down to try to handle it. And that's one of the problems with adjusting to a new league. If you slow your bat down to hit this breaking ball, you can't be aggressive enough to handle a fastball. You have to be aggressive at all times. You can't look for the curveball and hit the fastball. You have to look for the fastball and handle the curveball.
2-2 the count. And they got the breaking ball. Jody Reed throws it out again. Kevin Mitchell now, 156 at-bats, just 2 home runs.
Well, again, he finally chased a bad pitch. He swung at 2 bad pitches in that at-bat. Willie Mays and myself had talked about Kevin Mitchell coming to the American League, and we thought he was going to be great, simply because Kevin has always been a good breaking ball hitter. But the problem is when you start to look for the breaking ball, you swing at a lot of bad pitches out of the strike zone.
Here's Pete O'Brien. He was the other, in fact, the only other hitter to hit a home run against Clemens this year. He hit one that kind of wrapped itself around that right field foul pole at Fenway Park. The last time they faced Clemens. Down the left field line. Could be trouble. Fair ball. And an automatic double.
Roger Clemens had thrown off-speed pitches, changeups, and fastballs to both Griffey and O'Brien because he figures they can handle his fastball and slider. This is a fastball away, and O'Brien goes the other way with it. The reason he hit it because it was up about the middle of the plate. And this pitch is on the outside corner, but it's about belt high, and he goes the other way with it.
A double for Pete O'Brien, his 6th of the year. And now Jay Buhner. Now, when the Seahawks play here in the NFL, this is the loudest building in all of football. I mean, the decibel level here gets unbelievably high. Put in some new rules about noise in the NFL based on this ballpark. We got nearly 40,000 or so here tonight, and the crowd getting into this game now as the Mariners get it going against Clemens. 1 out. Jay Buhner flying to shallow right his first time. Just a base hit could tie this game. O'Brien at second. 1 out. And it is 0-2. Buhner has never had a hit, however, against Roger Clemens. We're in the last of the 4th inning from the Kingdome in Seattle. John Miller and Joe Morgan, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Boston 2, Seattle 1. We get Roger Clemens facing Randy Johnson tonight. 2-strike pitch to Buhner. Clemens with 2 strikeouts so far, but no walks. Randy Johnson with 6 strikeouts already, but 3 walks. And of course, Clemens has the lead.
Clemens has thrown 3 breaking balls, 2 for strikes on the outside corner, 1 away. He thought he had made up his mind where he wanted to go with this pitch, and then he changes his mind, so he steps off. You can watch Tony Pena, and you'll be able to tell where the pitch is going.
Well, the Looked like he had some sinking action.
Well, that was a changeup again. He doesn't throw it very often, but he has thrown it to Ken Griffey Jr. one time too many tonight. At least he made it too good a pitch. The other times he got it down and Griffey chased it once, but this inning he got it into the middle of the plate and he got hurt with it.
And the slider is outside. Now, Jay Buhner hit 27 home runs last year. And he hit some of the longest home runs that anybody in either league hit last year. He won at Yankee Stadium, they said, went 491 feet. Dave Valley on deck, 1 out. And he walked him. The first walk by Roger Clemens. And he had been ahead of him, 0-2.
Well, Roger made up his mind he was going to try to throw another perfect pitch. The first pitch of the at-bat to Buhner was a perfect pitch, a slider on the outside edge. And what you do with a guy like Buhner is if you miss away. And he throws a slide up. There's Tony Pena sitting right on the outside corner. And you try to get Buhner to chase it. If he does not, then you do not want it to get the middle of the plate. Ball's outside.
Dave Valley doubled off that big wall in right field his first time. He takes a strike, 0-1. 2 men on, 1 man out.
Exactly the same way he started Buhner with a slider perfect pitch, knee-high on the outside corner.
Griffey homered with 1 out. O'Brien doubled. Now Buhner has walked. The infield looking for the double play ball. Broken back, could be 2. Here's 1. And a double play. Second inning in a row, Clemens gets out of it with the double play ball. 2-1 Boston, top of the order coming. You know, Roger Clemens from Katy, Texas, and the Astros were his team as a youngster. And when Ryan would pitch and Clemens was just a kid, he'd get there early and he'd go down near the bullpen when Ryan would start his warm-ups. He not only wanted to study Ryan close up, but Clemens also loved to hear Ryan pop that catcher's glove. He loved the sound of it. He loved the idea of the power pitcher. And of course he patterned himself after Ryan, and in many ways he's the heir apparent to Nolan Ryan.
Well, Ryan has never won 3 Cy Young awards.
Clemens has had 2 or 3 years where his won-loss record were better than any year of Ryan's entire career. 1986, Clemens was 24-4, leading the Red Sox to the World Series. Jody Reed, the hitter, is walked and struck out. We're talking about Clemens, but Randy Johnson is back on center stage, and he has 6 strikeouts already in 4 innings.
Nolan Ryan is the most amazing pitcher that, you know, I have ever seen or read about, for that matter, because, I mean, to be overpowering at his age, and he's still a fine pitcher.
And it is 1-2 now to Jody Reed, hitting .303 right at the moment. 2-1 Boston ahead. 2 runs and 4 hits for the Red Sox. 1 run and 5 hits for the Mariners. And Griffey Jr., the game's only home run. Mike Greenwell and Tom Brunansky will follow Reed here in the 5th. Strike 3 call. Number 7 for Johnson.
Johnson on occasion will kind of sling the slider like sidearm. Now watch, this starts outside. So he kind of sidearm it, slings it, and it starts over the outside and breaks over the middle of the plate. Good pitch.
Mike Greenwell has not been a strikeout victim tonight. And no, says Drew Coble, no swing. 1 ball and no strikes.
Well, he did everything but swing at it. He was completely fooled by that pitch. It seemed like a slower curve than Johnson has been throwing.
Whoa. He didn't hold back on that one. Not Johnson, anyway. That was 95 miles an hour. 1 ball, 1 strike. Greenwell is fly deep to right, and a slide out to right center. Foul away into the crowd. 1-2 to count. How can this guy have only 2 extra base hits? I mean, Mike Greenwell.
I hope you aren't asking me.
I've been asking everybody. Nobody knows yet.
Right, because I've been asking the same question, and no one knows.
Greenwell's best explanation is that baseball's a funny game. But he's not laughing.
Yeah.
This week, he's hit a couple of doubles. And those are the only extra base hits he's had the whole year. Greenwell's had 108 at-bats, 2 doubles, no homers, no triples. Only 10 runs batted in.
Breaking ball away again.
Too far away. 3-2. Tom Brunansky is on deck. You see Jack Clark in the hole back there. Corner of the dugout. Look out. It hit Johnson. Base hit, but Johnson is hurt.
It appeared to hit him in the back, but no, he's grabbing his left elbow, his left arm.
Rick Griffin, the trainer, immediately out there, along with Bill Plummer. Here's Plummer, the manager.
He throws Greenwell a fastball on the inside part of the plate, and he lines it back through the middle. Now Johnson tries to turn, but he could not. See, I thought it hit him in the back, but it apparently hit him on his left arm.
Harold Reynolds had no play anyway. Well, Johnson gets up, and it looks like he's going to lead this game. It's Johnson. I think he might have got hit right around the elbow somewhere. And he walks off with the trainer, Rick Griffin. So, Bill Plummer will have to go to his bullpen.
Please out pitching for the Mariners for number 48, Dennis Powell.
Have won 11 of their last 14 games now. And meanwhile here, the Boston Red Sox leading 2-1. Here is Dennis Powell. He'll get just as long as he deems necessary in which to warm up here. He enters the game with 1 out and 1 on. Randy Johnson, a hit on the arm. A line drive hit by Mike Greenwell. And as soon as we get a report on Johnson, we will, of course, pass it along to you.
Johnson is hit with a line drive off the bat of Greenwell. We're blocked there, but it apparently hit him on his left arm, and he left the game. We will be able to see the line drive, but we still can't tell exactly where it hits him. The only thing I could think is it hits him on the back of the elbow and bounces away.
Right fielder Tom Brunansky.
Through 84 pitches, as you see, 7 strikeouts in 4 and a third innings. And again, we'll keep our fingers crossed that Randy Johnson's going to be okay. There is Greenwell, the man who hit the ball. He's at first base. O'Brien on the back with him. And here is the hitter, Tom Brunansky, who had struck out twice, once looking against Johnson. Dennis Powell is the new Mariner pitcher. He misses badly, ball 1. Didn't look like he was quite warm.
No,
way through that one.
And as you mentioned, he should have taken all the time that he wanted to get warm.
You know, Roger Clemens in 1986, frightening moment. Game at Fenway Park, a young catcher with the Baltimore Orioles named John Stafaro. Second inning of a game, there's ball 2. The Red Sox were heading into their postseason late in the year. And Clemens got hit in the arm by a line drive by Stafaro. Had to leave the game. Cast a pall over Fenway Park did that. But of course, he did come back, and he pitched in the postseason. And again, we'll be hopeful here that Johnson will have the same good fortune and be able to get back quickly. But for that man, Bill Plummer, what else can go wrong? They turned around this pitching staff during the winter, part of it in the trade to bring Kevin Mitchell here. That is a fair ball. Martinez to second to Reynolds. In time. Force out. Greenwell is retired. Brunansky safe at first.
Nice play by Martinez at third. That is not an easy play because it's a high chopper and he has to get rid of the ball quickly. He throws it on the run. He's only trying to get 1 here. So he has to throw it on the run, gets rid of it very quickly. And a nice play by second baseman who has to stand in there and make sure he doesn't get killed by Greenwell coming in. Nice play by Martinez.
So 2 down. Here's Jack Clark, the Ripper, takes low, ball 1. Clark also had struck out twice against Randy Johnson. Ellisburg's on deck, 2 down, 5th inning. Boston ahead 2-1. That is a called strike at the outside.
Maybe it's just the league itself. The American League makes you National Leaguers not handle a breaking ball, because again, I repeat, Jack Clark was a great breaking ball hitter, and so is Kevin Mitchell, and they both have struggled with the breaking balls in the American League. But again, I think it's because they're looking for a breaking ball, and they end up swinging at a lot of bad pitches instead of looking for the fastball first and adjusting to the breaking ball.
We got the first report about Randy Johnson. He was hit in the area of the left elbow, which we speculated about. And he's been taken to, I guess, a local hospital for x-rays. 2-1 to Clark, 3-1. Kevin Mitchell said recently, in the National League, they establish the pitch in right away. They pound the ball in. So in the American League, it's just the opposite. They establish the ball away. They establish outside.
And it's very hard for you to stand there and see 2 pitches go away and not think that they're going to come inside, because that's the way it has been all your career.
Away again for ball 4. A walk for Clark. Brunansky moves over to second base. The batter will be Ellisburg. 39,005. That is the attendance tonight at the Kingdome. And of course, this is a franchise in limbo.
Only, you know, as far as the players are concerned, except the fans are still supporting the team, and the fans still love the team, which I think is great under all this, you know, adverse publicity and whatever the team has received. The fans will continue to support them.
There's ball 1 to Ellisburg, who has walked and singled. On the other hand, this created problems in terms of the involvement of the corporate community. There's some reticence to maybe back the ball club with sponsorships of various kinds, with the feeling that maybe they're gone at the end of this year. It's not a good situation. That's a ball inside. The Japanese investors, the Nintendo people, along with some local investors. There's Jeff Nelson warming up as Powell can't get the ball over the plate all of a sudden, and Dan Warthen, the Mariner pitching coach, will go to the mound now to visit with Powell. 2 on, 2 out, 5th inning. And you saw that sign a moment ago, a message to Fay Vincent, the commissioner. But right now, all of that is in sort of committee. The committee headed by Fred Kuhlman. And we're not really privy to all of the negotiating that's been going on, but nothing has happened as of yet.
Well, it's definitely put the Mariners team at a disadvantage because they can't really make any moves. They can't do anything from, you know, for financial reasons, and that makes it very difficult. You know, they think the demise started this year with, you know, trade of the pitchers for Kevin Mitchell, but it actually started last year when they could not make some of the deals they wanted to make, and they had to let some pitchers go who could have helped them this year.
2-0 the count to Burks. 3-0. Zupsik is on deck. And if Zupsik bats in this inning, he may not bat against Powell. Nelson, the right-hander, warming up in a hurry. Nancy Clark, the runners. Strike. The future whereabouts of the Mariners in question. Will they be the Seattle Mariners or maybe the St. Petersburg Mariners? And the future whereabouts of the San Francisco Giants? Will they one day be the San Jose Giants, or?
Well, that will be decided quicker than the Mariners' fate. The Giants' fate will be decided this Tuesday when the ballot is done in San Jose.
That's foul.
And I guess it's amazing to me that, you know, a baseball franchise brings so much money into the community. Jobs, you know, national recognition, which will help bring, you know, big companies to your cities and so forth. So I guess I'm just a big fan of baseball, and I know what it really does for a team, for a city. And I think San Jose has an opportunity to, you know, really put itself on the map, because, to have the San Francisco Giants there, the San Jose Giants would be a big feather in their hat.
2, the 2 runners ready to go. They run. A high fly ball, shallow center. Briley. The inning is over. Howell somehow gets through it. Vizquel, Reynolds, and Briley coming up. 2-1 Boston. Nobody is breaking away in either division in the National League. Here is Omar Vizquel, and he takes high from Roger Clemens. Ball 1. Now Clemens, it's been a while since he was on that mound.
Yes. And sometimes it takes you a few pitches to get your rhythm back.
That's a foul down the left field line into the lower deck. Vizquel hit one back to Clemens his first time. 1 ball, 1 strike. 2-1. Boston ahead.
I really expect one of these years that Roger Clemens is going to put a season together, just one of those fantastic years. And to think that he's already won 3 Cy Young Awards, and we're saying things like this. One of these days he's going to win 15 games, lose 1, win 5 or 10 more, and lose 1. And he's going to have one of those fantastic records one of these years and just put it all together. And I mean, he's only pitched 6 complete years in the major leagues, and he's won 3 Cy Young Awards.
Strike 3 call. Strikeout number 3 for the Rockets.
Number 4, Harold Reynolds.
It's a fastball right on the outside corner. Watch the target. Tony Pena just raises it straight up. He does not move it from outside to in, right on the corner. And we got to look at Roger Clemens.
One out. Here's Reynolds, and that is a strike. Reynolds struck out his first time. You're talking about those 6 complete years of Roger Clemens in the big leagues. His worst year of the 6, he was 17 and 11. That was his worst year. And that is a ball. 1 ball, 1 strike. He's won 20 or more 3 times, including 24 and 4 in 86. That year, when he really burst upon the national scene, on the national baseball consciousness. That's a foul. That year he did everything. He had the 20 strikeout game against the Mariners. 24 and 4. He started that year by going 14-0.
That's what I'm talking about. I believe that he's going to do that again, and he's going to start to do it consistently. It's just amazing. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Sandy Koufax. I don't like to make those types of comparisons because, you know, to me, Sandy Koufax was just unbelievable. But Roger Clemens is also very dominant every time he goes to the mound.
Back to Clemens. Not much of a throw there by Roger, but
yeah, Roger needs to work on his throw at first base.
maybe he thought Clark needed to work on his short fielding. Gave him a test.
It's a reaction by Roger. He gets himself in a position to field the ball. He learned that probably at the University of Texas. And then I don't think Gustafson showed him how to do that, though.
Throw the ball to first.
Yeah, he didn't have to show him that play.
Here's Briley, grounded a second, and had that amazing infield hit in the third that just rolled right along the first base side, along the line, and hit the bag at first eventually, rolling ever so slowly all the way.
If you watch Roger Clemens and how he pitches to the Mariners, you can tell the hitters in this lineup that he feels like can hurt him. And those are the ones that he's really concentrating the hardest on. And that being Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey, Mitchell, and O'Brien. He feels that he can handle Buhner if he makes the pitches. But, of course, the other guys he knows he can't make a mistake on because they can hurt him. He made a mistake with Griffey, and it cost him a run. So the middle of the Mariners' order can handle his fastball, and he's aware of that.
2 down, nobody on. 2-1 Boston. No contest. Strikeout number 4 for Roger Clemens. And he's heating it up. We're heading to the 5th. 2-1 Boston. Us here at the Kingdome. And that doesn't even include us. John Miller and Joe Morgan, your ESPN Sunday night telecasters. Here is Zupsik to lead it off for the Red Sox. 2-1 Boston ahead. Zupsik takes a strike. He has hit a double, a key hit in that 2-run second inning rally, and he has had a sacrifice bunt. Looks very intense up there, doesn't he?
You know what's interesting, John, is that Bill Plummer brought a left-handed pitcher in. The Boston lineup was set up, you know, to go against a left-handed pitcher, and he brought in a left-handed pitcher. If you bring in a right-hander, you know, they only have one left-handed hitter in the lineup, and that is Greenwell, and he's the one that hurt Randy Johnson.
Up the middle, base hit. Vizquel made a very nice try for it. So the Red Sox have a man aboard, and Butch Hobson. He was a home run hitting third baseman for the Red Sox when the Red Sox almost all hit home runs. 213 they hit in 1977. Hobson hit 8 that year and hit 30. But look at the decline. They've hit only 17 so far this year. If you project that out at that pace for the whole season, only 63. They have had 45 consecutive years of over 100 home runs, excluding the strike year where a complete season was not played.
Well, if they continue that, they'll beat Roger Maris's record by 2.
And Butch Hobson. Remember that? Yeah, 1977. There was one stretch they hit 33 home runs in 10 games. They hit 5 against Jim Palmer in a game.
Now that's
all
impressive.
solos, he said.
Yeah, but that's impressive. Palmer never gave up a grand slam. You know that?
His whole career, yeah.
Whole career.
Well, the bunt was on, but the Mariners thought maybe something else would be happening, but the runner was not going. He's up 6, staying at first.
Well, they've been using the bunt and run throughout the ball game, so a good play by Bill Plummer there, I think, to pitch out in that situation. Let's see if they're going to try and bunt and run again.
1 ball, 1 strike. Bullpen activity for the Mariners. Foul in relief of the injured Johnson. Right to Martinez on a hop. The second one. Reynolds to first.
Well, they say that's the pitcher's best friend because it gets him out of a lot of jams, but that was hit like a shot. Naring hit a bullet down at third. Martinez was in, you know, expecting the bunt, so he sees way in front of the bag. He takes it, fires to second. His throw's a little low, but Harold Reynolds, the Gold Glove second baseman, makes the pivot very easily. 5-4 to 3.
2 down, nobody on, and here is Rivera batting for the first time with nobody in scoring position. He got the big hit. 2 down in the second, runners at second and third, and he rolled a single into right field to bring in 2 runs. Then in the fourth, with a runner at third base eventually, he walked. Right to Edgar. Martinez throws him out, and the inning is over. We'll see Edgar, then Griffey, then Mitchell when we come back.
ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by the Michelob family of beers, because Sundays are better than others. And by ESPN Home Video, producers and distributors of slow-pitch softball, available at video and retail stores nationwide.
This is the home of world-class mountaineers. They hang out by that mountain in the background, Mount Rainier. And the Mount Rainier Mountaineering School, Joe, when you decide you want to climb Everest, you go talk to those guys at Mount Rainier.
Guess what? Bill Russell has climbed that. See,
no
he
kid.
did. Yeah. He pointed to today when we were on the way to the course, and he said, I climbed Mount Rainier. I said, what for? He said, because it was there.
Where have I heard that one?
Yeah.
Edgar Martinez. That's foul. Now, Edgar has singled and also grounded into a double play. His Mariners are down by a run to Roger Clemens. Last of the 6th inning, the big guns are coming up for Seattle. Who is Edgar Martinez, maybe you're asking?
Right.
You know, the Mariners don't get a lot of publicity around the country. Well, Edgar
other than Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, other than the kid. Martinez hit .307 last year, and he hit .302 the year before. Not many third basemen outside of Wade Boggs, outside of Fenway Park, are hitting .300 year after year. He is hitting .298 right now. Hard, but right to Rivera. That throws him out.
He has a lot of good qualities as a hitter. Keeps his hands back, and he uses his hands very well. Very quick hands. Good swing, good hitter.
Ken Griffey Jr. coming up. Back in the 4th inning against Roger Clemens with a score 2-0. Here's what happened. And into the seats. The 9th home run of the year for Ken Griffey Jr. That made it 2-1, and that's where we are now as he comes up again. And again, Joe, that porch in right field beckons. And you recall that Clemens did not seem too pleased that Pena had called for that off-speed pitch there. Well, now Pena is out visiting with Roger here before they pitch.
They had a conversation to make sure they're on the same wavelength here this time about how they want to pitch Ken Griffey Jr. We'll try to take a look and see the pitching pattern they're going to use. They're going to fastball away to start this sequence.
Close. It is only 312 feet to the right field wall in the corner.
Here's a changeup again, the pitch he hit for the home run.
That would have been a sucker ball for him there. 2-0. Out of the strike zone. Right center field in this ballpark is maybe, what, 350, 360? It's very shallow in right field.
Fastball away.
Down the left field line, could be trouble. It's in there, base hit. Griffey on his way to second. The ball is kicked around down there. Griffey around second. He'll go back as finally it is recovered by Zupsik. A double for Ken Griffey.
I talked to Gene Klein, the hitting instructor for the Mariners last year, about Ken Griffey Jr. And what he said is he said he's just a kid with raw talent. He does not think at the plate. He just attacks the ball, because 2-0 you normally wouldn't swing at this pitch. It's down and away, but all he knows how to do is attack the baseball. And down and away, and he goes the other way, and he hits a double.
So with one out, the possible tying run is in scoring position, and Kevin Mitchell is at the plate. 1989 MVP National League, Kevin Mitchell, 47 home runs. Then the next 2 years, he had some injury problems, but still in less than a full season, he had 35 home runs in 90. And then last year, in maybe 2/3 of a season, he had 27 home runs.
And when you talk about the fact that they say throwing a lot of breaking balls in the American League, etc., he didn't hit 47 home runs off of fastballs, I'm telling you, because I saw most of them.
Griffey at second, 1 out.
He has to be a little more patient. He's trying to make up for his slow start with every at-bat, and you can't do that.
A long way to go yet in this season. 0-1.
Kevin is unhappy with the breaking ball outside part of the plate. We'll take a look. And it is off the plate, as you can see. Just off.
Clemens buffing a pickoff to second. Nobody was covering.
Well, I think that was done for another reason. He wanted to see if Griffey was trying to pick up the signs, or if he was looking in at the catcher and not paying attention to Roger Clemens.
And sliders away. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Now, if they use the pattern they used before, they went away, and then threw the fastball up and in, and Mitchell swung at it. If he comes back inside with a fastball, it's obviously going to be a ball. Mitchell should, lay off of it, and then he'd be in a better position to get a pitch to hit. Yeah, fastball in.
Check swing, an accidental ground ball right to Clark. Griffey takes third. Mitchell is retired.
So they stayed with the same pattern. They were coming back inside with a fastball. Mitchell tried to check his swing. And we'll see if it was a strike, which I doubt. Nope, it's a ball, but nothing Mitchell can do. He hits his bat. Ball is inside, and Mitchell tries to check, but too late. That's the pattern they had used. Breaking ball away, and then a fastball inside.
Meanwhile, as O'Brien comes up, Pena's back to the mound again. He and Clemens have been having discussions before every batter here since Griffey came up.
We didn't mention it earlier, but about the second inning when Roger Clemens went in, it was actually after O'Brien had gotten a hit. He and Hobson seemed to be discussing something, and not, it's not that they were arguing, but they were both presenting their own points of view. And then Clemens went to Tony Pena, and they both kind of expressed their points of view. So there is something going on about the pitch choices or the sequence that they're using. And I guess they want to make sure that in this situation that they know exactly how they want to go with against O'Brien, and plus there's a right-handed hitter on deck.
Well, when Roger Clemens starts something, he usually finishes it. He's had 6 complete games in his first 10 starts this year. You see there, he's only had 8 innings all year that would have been possible for him to pitch that he has not pitched. And there's O'Brien. He's had a double tonight against Clemens, and he's had a history of success with him. The possible tying runs at third, 2 down.
See how they go after him. Fastball away. And he hit a double on a fastball away his last at bat.
O'Brien has hit the ball hard twice. He lined a shot right to first baseman Clark in the second. Then he hit the double down into the left field corner in the fourth.
They're going to stay away from it, it seems like. Anyway, that seems to be the pattern.
A ball and a strike. O'Brien did pull one fair for a home run at Fenway Park 11 days ago against Clemens. There's Griffey, the runner at third, the possible tying run. Away again for a strike. 1 and 2.
Okay, now, when you can throw 3 pitches like that, when I graded him, I said he had very good control, as we've seen here. He's hit the outside corner twice. Now, he has him set up if he wants to come in hard inside, but they're going to stay away again. Fastball away.
Just a little too far away. 2 and 2.
And, of course, they wanted O'Brien to reach for that pitch and maybe go for it, but he would not. They've made up their mind he's going to hit a fastball away if he gets a base hit.
No, says Durwood. 3 and 2.
That was a great shot there of Durwood Merrill. You saw that.
And
shaking his head.
Clemens is hollering at him.
Well, that is outside. I mean, no doubt. And Durwood was shaking his head. Now, Tony Pena stood up like they were going to give him an intentional walk. Now, you better be ready if you're O'Brien.
No, they're not doing it.
Yeah,
exactly right,
exactly
Joe.
Right. You don't walk a guy with 2 strikes. I mean,
well, give O'Brien credit.
Yeah, he was ready.
Close friend of yours,
yeah,
he bought that fake. The World Series in '72.
Yes. Here you see Tony Pena standing up, but O'Brien is smart enough to know they're not going to walk him. Now he goes in his crouch, high fastball, he fouls it away.
Have you seen that attempted since that World Series?
No, this is the first time I've ever seen that attempted, after, it happened to Bench. I was on third base when that happened to Bench in the '72 World Series.
Raleigh fingers the pitcher.
And I was yelling at him, be ready, John, they're going to pitch to you. And he said he heard me, but he just could not, make it compute in his mind that they were going to pitch to him. And he said, besides, he threw a slider right on the block. He couldn't touch it anyway.
Pete O'Brien looked offended that they did that, didn't he?
Well, let's see what they do now. I mean, common sense truthfully says, why do you walk a guy with 2 strikes? I mean, you might as well try to get him to nibble or swing at a bad pitch, unless you don't feel your pitcher has good enough control that he can just miss. But Pena goes back into his crouch. Now, again, they're going to go away, so...
Jody Reed shouldn't be any trouble, and the side is retired. They're playing with O'Brien's mind in that sequence. 1 hit, 1 left, 2-1 Boston after 6. A new pitcher for Seattle as we go to the 7th inning. Boston ahead 2-1, and it is Jeff Nelson, a great big fellow, 6 feet 8 inches tall, from Baltimore. 8 years in the minor leagues, Joe, and finally, at long last, he's in the show.
Well, that's great. I mean, 6'8", maybe they're getting together a basketball team here, too, with he and Randy Johnson.
Down the right field area, base hit by Tony Pena. First ball swinging. Pena had struck out twice against Randy Johnson.
That was a typical Tony Pena swing and hit. He's decided that he's going the other way, pitches down, and he just takes it and shoots it to right field. Middle of the plate. You can see everything is going towards right field there. That's where he had made up his mind he was going to hit the baseball.
The question remains, and of course we don't know Bill Plummer's club obviously nearly as well as he does, but conventional wisdom would have been for Nelson to come on in relief of Johnson in the 5th when he got hurt.
Right.
A right-hander with all of those right-handed hitters in there.
Yeah.
Rather than Powell. Powell went 1 2/3 innings, didn't give up any runs.
But he was lucky, John. I mean, there were a couple of balls.
Yeah,
he struggled. A couple of balls hit hard, but I mean, again, he knows his pitching staff better than we do. We only come here once a year.
Into left center field. Riley calling off Mitchell. Oh, no. Throwing for second for the force out. Sing. Now, that was ridiculous.
Well, the ridiculous part of it is the center fielder is the one that's supposed to take charge. And if the center fielder can catch it, he's supposed to catch it.
I mean, Mitchell did just what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, Mitchell did what he's supposed to. He's supposed to back up. The center fielder is supposed to catch the ball. You have to take charge. And they're scoring it an error on that center fielder. Now, he's there. He's there.
Well, what is he doing?
I don't know. Mitchell's behind him.
Yeah, and the throw came into second, yeah.
Well, the second baseman's foot is off the bag. That's why he's safe. The throw did beat him, but Reynolds came off the bag a little quickly. Reynolds' foot was off the bag. That's why the runner at second was called safe. There's Briley. Now watch Reynolds' right foot. It will be off the bag when he makes contact right there. He catches the ball and he's off the bag. When the ball hits his glove, he's off the bag. That's why he was called safe, because the throw did beat him. Reynolds didn't have to cheat on that.
2 men on, nobody out. And bullpen activity for the Seattle Mariners as the left-handed hitting Greenwell faces the right-hander Nelson. Ball one. Nelson kind of a side armor by a third base.
And a sinker ball pitcher, sinker slider.
Greenwell's base hit, a liner off the elbow or near the elbow of Randy Johnson. There is Russ Swan, a left-hander, warming up in the Seattle bullpen. 2-1, Boston ahead. 7th inning, the Red Sox with a great opportunity here given to them by the Mariners. A strike, 1 ball, 1 strike. Pena, who led off the inning with a single, is at second. And Jody Reed, who hit a routine fly ball to left center field, and Greg Briley, the center fielder, whose job it is to take anything he can get his hands on, stood there, and for some inexplicable reason, as if he thought Mitchell was the center fielder.
Right.
And, of course, Griffey, the DH tonight, would have taken that one had it been another 50 feet over there toward Mitchell.
Correct. But the center fielder has to know. I mean, you have to. There's a certain mentality that goes with being a center fielder. You are to take charge, guys, out there. You're supposed to catch everything you can get to. Too used to letting Griffey take everything that he gets to. Good pitch by Nelson, a sinker that started just above the knees and sunk down out of the strike zone. Greenwell chased it. But this is what he wants, and he wants a ground ball. And it's a good sinker. He's got it short. Reynolds at second. Double play depth. Slider in the back door, but it missed. 3-2. You take the count to 3-2 now. Boston has all kind of options. They can start the runners, which will open up some holes for Greenwell, and you do not normally want to do that. 2-2 is the time you want to make it happen. Only one left-hander left, but Boston has a predominantly hitting right-handed lineup anyway. The only left-handed hitter in the lineup is at the plate right now. Ball 4. The bases are loaded. When Powell came in there, he never did face the one left-handed hitter that was in the Boston batting order, Mike Greenwell. Again, maybe it's because I'm from, as they say, the old school, but 2-2 is the count where you make something happen. You couldn't get the guy out before that. You have to give in, so to speak, and throw the sinker, try to get the ground ball. You don't want to take the count to 3-2 with runners in scoring position. In other words, on 2-2, they threw the backdoor slider, not the sinker. Trying to get a strikeout. No, you want the ground ball double play. Brunansky, the hitter, slider for a strike. Brunansky has struck out twice, and he's hit into a force out. 0 for 3. Boston threatening to bust it wide open here in the 7th, leading already 2-1. But Hobson's team has the bases loaded. Hobson's choice, the long ball. No, 1-1. And the Mariners are playing back for a double play, which means they would concede a run on a ground ball as shortstop or second base. Riley, he does not have a real strong arm. O'Brien tries to cut it off, squirts past him. Scoring on the play is Pena. The other run is hold up. Sacrifice fly for Brunansky. 3-1 Boston. A run that should not have scored
third baseman, Jack Clark.
Reed still at second. Greenwell still at first. Al Bumbry alongside. Bumbry sporting high-top shoes over there.
Yeah.
The latest fashion among first base coaches.
The bumblebee.
The bee is in a high tops. And here is the ripper. He has struck out twice and he has walked. 2 on, 1 out. Slider, ball 1. Valley reacted awkwardly there in that pitch. There are those high-top shoes sported by Bumbry.
What happened to the sanitaries, you know, that you wear, the White Sox you wear, and you don't need those anymore.
He's in the Barry Bonds mode now. Up the middle, base hit. Here comes Reed rounding third, heading home. Riley throws toward the plate, cut off by O'Brien. And Jack Clark gets the clutch hit. Boston 4-1 over the Mariners.
Well, Jack Clark, with runners in scoring position, he seems to cut down on his swing. He doesn't go for an all-or-nothing situation. And he takes this pitch and just drives it right back through the middle. It's a fastball in the middle of the plate, and he just grounds it back through the box.
Well, he's got a left-hander warming up out there. As you saw a moment ago when we showed you the available pitchers out of the bullpen, they had a long list of right-handers and only one left-hander. But they're going to the lefty right here. We'll be back. Swan, the left-hander, on to face the right-handed hitting Ellis Burks. Burks has walked, had an infield single, and flied to shallow center. 2 runs in, 2 men on. Greenwell at second, Clark at first. 4-1, Boston ahead. Base hit right over the head of Martinez, down the left field line into the corner. Rounding third, Greenwell. He scores. Mitchell up with the ball. Going to third, Clark. Into second with a double is Burks. And it is 5-1 Red Sox.
It's a high fastball, the first pitch, and Burks rips it over to third baseman Martinez's head, and it goes into the corner. No chance for Martinez to get up in time. Bounces away from Kevin Mitchell momentarily, and another run scores for the Red Sox, and runners at second and third.
Now they're going to walk Zubcic intentionally, and that near wild pitch was very much unintentional.
When you're walking a hitter intentionally, you're supposed to still find the catcher's target and throw to it. There's the target. It's a low and away fastball.
Just going to load the bases. Set up the double play ball. One thing. And here comes ball 3. The Red Sox do have a bench full of left-handed hitters available. Guys like Bill Plantier. You see Naring getting loose on deck. Scott Cooper, the young prospect, and also Herm Winningham. Boggs is on the bench but not available.
Except in probably a case of emergency, if the game was to go long innings and they need a fly ball or something, I'm sure he could probably go to bat.
We are in the 7th inning. John Miller and Joe Morgan, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Seattle. 39,000 people here, but in an angry mood right now. Boston has scored 3 times in the 7th, breaking open a tight game. Boston 5, Seattle 1. But they're threatening to do even more here. Bases loaded, 1 out, Naring the hitter. The infield double play depth. Swan, ball 1. Swan was in the rotation. 5th starter when the season began. Right now they're going with 4 starters for a while. Swan is 2 and 5. You see there, 5.80 earned run average. He's not having much success as a starter. And it is 2-0. There's Clark, who single home run at third. Burks, who doubled home run at second. Zubcic walked intentionally at first. And there is more bullpen activity for the Mariners. Swan, former San Francisco Giants pitcher. Martinez to the plate for the force out on Clark.
Again, that's a nice play by Martinez. He's made some Very fine plays over at third. He has to charge this ball and get it on the short hop, but he gets it on the in-between hop, which is the toughest hop. Good soft hands allows him to cradle it and make the throw to Valley to retire Jack Clark. See, that's good soft hands right there. If you stick your arms down and straighten them out stiffly, the ball would have bounced away from him.
Luis Rivera. He got a clutch 2-out hit with runners at second and third in the second to drive in 2. He's got the bases loaded and 2 down here. That is a strike. Rivera walked in the 4th, ground to the 3rd and the 6th. 1 for 2. Burks now at third base, Zupsik at second, and Naring at first. 5-1 Boston in the 7th, and that, with Clemens on the mound, is like a yawning chasm for the Mariners in their hope of overcoming it.
Maybe like trying to climb Mount Rainier.
Yeah. See if Bill Russell can do it. I don't know if the Mariners can do it. Calvin Jones warming up, the right-hander. Seattle bullpen.
The one thing the Mariners do have is a lot of young arms and young pitchers, and we've seen a few of them tonight. And when they mature, they're going to have a fine staff.
1-2. Rivera is the 9th man to bat in the inning. Mariners traded the 3 pitchers to the Giants, of course, for Kevin Mitchell, Billy Swift, Mike Jackson, Dave Burba, and then Rob Murphy, a left-hander, was in the bullpen last year. They let him go. Bill Kruger, who's 5-0 for the Twins, 111 for them. They let him go. And also Scott Bankhead, let him go. In the dirt, knocked down by Valley. 2-2 now. Brian Holman has been a real workhorse for them. A lot of innings, a lot of wins the last couple of years. He's out with an injury. And they've had numerous other injury problems. 2 pitchers they thought would make the club as starters in the spring. One of their top prospects, Roger Salkeld, got tendonitis. He's still not back in AAA even, coming back from the tendonitis.
But Dave Flemings, the left-hander who started last night's ball game,
has been sensational.
Yeah.
2-2 the count, bases loaded. And that ends the inning. 3 men left with 3 runs scored. Buhner, Valley, and Vizquel coming up. 5-1 Boston. Named Seattle Space Needle as part of the World's Fair 1964. Over near Queen Anne Hill here in Seattle. You're looking across Elliott Bay at downtown Seattle. That waterfront was bustling with activity today. People in town. Waterfront is just a carnival down there. It's beautiful vistas everywhere. Wonderful seafood restaurants. The aquarium is a beauty. But now indoors, life is not so beautiful. The Mariners trailing against Roger Clemens 5-1. He made a critical mistake. It wasn't a physical error. It was just Greg Briley not doing what he's supposed to do out there. A mental lapse. Buhner fouls one back into the upper deck. Buhner has flied to shallow right, and he has walked. Still looking for his first ever hit against Roger Clemens.
I think you'll see a different Roger Clemens now that he has a 4-run lead. You will see him go right after a lot of hitters as he did Buhner on this first pitch. Before that, he had thrown him nothing but sliders away, and now he's going to, be able to challenge his hitters a little bit better in this situation.
A very tensely played game up till now.
Right.
A lot of crucial pitches delivered by Roger Clemens in this one. He had the possible tying run on base in the 4th and the 6th, and with only 1 out each time. High fly ball, shallow right center. Burks. Now that's the way that Briley was supposed to have played that ball with Mitchell alongside in the first half of the inning. College World Series. We got action for you tonight. Ron Frazier's Miami Hurricanes meeting Cal State Fullerton Aggie Garrido's ball club. One of the great college coaches matched up there. Midnight tonight, then tomorrow at 4, Wichita State meets Oklahoma. Oh, boy. Here's Clemens now to Dave Valley. And Valley looks at ball 1. That was the 89th pitch thrown by Roger Clemens. so that's not bad for Roger. Look out. 1 ball, 1 strike. Roger threw only 91 pitches in his 8 innings of work in Anaheim last Tuesday night, which is a very low total for him.
Well, if you're a strikeout pitcher, first of all, you have to throw, you know, to strike out hitters, you throw more pitches than, say, a sinker ball pitcher who gets a lot of ground ball outs.
Valley has doubled, and he has grounded into a double play. 1 for 2. And 2 and 1. 5 runs, 9 hits for Boston, 1 run, 6 hits, and 1 error for Seattle. Griffey has the game's only home run. We got a pinch hitter moving out into the on-deck circle for the Mariners with Vizquel due up next. That breaking ball is on the corner, strike 2. 2 and 2. Tino Martinez is out on deck.
We talked about his control, and we get another example of it right on the corner by Roger Clemens.
2-2 pitch.
We talked about his gas. There's another example of it.
Smoke, I saw it.
Fastball. 92 miles an hour. So he has dropped off a little bit.
Here's that replay in normal speed. This is not slowed down.
So see if you can hit it. Here it comes. Well, Roger says chalk up another one.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
5th strikeout for the Rocket. And here is the pinch hitter, Tino Martinez. Tino's from the Tampa area, and he wanted us to congratulate on his behalf the University of Tampa baseball team, where he played ball in college. They won the Division II title yesterday, and he's very happy for it. That's a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. And I think they're very happy for him. He's a young prospect, and he's hitting .286 in the big leagues.
Been swinging the bat very well lately.
4 homers, 9 doubles, 19 batted in. He is 0 for 11 lifetime against Clemens. 5 strikeouts against Roger.
Well, if he swings at that high fastball, he will continue to be 0 for. That's almost an impossible pitch to hit there.
The feeling that Roger's thrown that to him a few other times.
Tries to throw him to him again. Durwood, you heard him vocally say, no, no, no.
Durwood Merrill from Hooks, Texas.
Done a great job behind the plate, as we've shown tonight on several occasions. Right on the corner, he called him.
Foul down the left field line, 2 and 2. 2 down, nobody on, 7th inning. 5-1 Boston.
You know, when we talk about pitchers, the umpires, and we may show every once in a while, this ball looks like it's a little bit away, a little bit. But, I mean, if you're calling 250 pitches a night, it's almost impossible not to miss one.
Right to Jody Reed. 3 up and 3 down. We're going to the 8th inning now. 5-1 Red Sox.
Turn back the clock and watch the Pirates play the New York Giants. The French Open, Monaco versus the United Nations. And Bill Buckner couldn't get this ball, but maybe you can. Keith Olbermann for Dan Patrick. Join us on SportsCenter after the game.
Here we go to the 8th inning. The Red Sox up with Tony Pena, who singled to right, started a 3-run Red Sox rally in the 7th. Now he faces Russ Swan. Pena 1 for 3 tonight. Ball 1. He'll be followed by the top of the order, Jody Reed and Mike Greenwell. A new shortstop is in for the Mariners. Jeff Schaefer is now in at short, hitting 8th in the order. Just off the corner, and it is 2 balls and no strikes. 5-1 the Red Sox, breaking open a real tight ball game in the 7th inning. 3 runs scoring, 2 of them earned. The Mariners making a terrible mistake in the outfield, and Greg Briley just let a routine fly ball drop. It's his ball all the way. For some reason, he thought that, seemed to think Kevin Mitchell was going to go ahead and take it. That is a strike, 3-1. Anyway, it cost them dearly. You can't make a mistake like that when you're facing Roger Clemens.
No.
There's Jody Reed on deck.
As you mentioned, it stayed close, 2-1, and that just opened the doors for a 3-run inning for the Red Sox, and now it's 5-1.
Yeah, the Red Sox took advantage of it. Big crowd, very disappointed. They had their shots against Clemens when the game was 2-1. And O'Brien at second with 1 out of the 4th. And then they had Griffey at second with 1 out of the 6. Couple of chances to tie it with a base hit. It could not get the hit, and now it will take a lot more than just 1 base hit. 5-1 Boston. Left center field, and Pena, who's been in a season-long slump, is 2 for 4. Now let's go to John Saunders.
Charlie Huff of the White Sox had the Blue Jays under control, but 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th. Dave Winfield against Bobby Thigpen. 9th home run of the year. Jays tie the game at 2-2. Still in the 9th. Kelly Gruber on second. Greg Myers takes Thigpen the other way. Gruber coming home. Tim Raines with the throw. And the perfect slide gets his hand in there. The Jays win it 3-2. The Red Sox are chasing them. John and Joe.
Thank you, John. And the Jays lead the Orioles by 1 in the American League East. Here's Jody Reed. His walk, singled, struck out, and he was the man who hit that routine-looking fly ball that Briley did not catch in the 7th. So Jody is 1 for 3 officially. The Orioles have beat Oakland today, 4-2. Foul ball right past the B. Rick Sutcliffe won another one, Joe. He's 7-4 for the Baltimore club.
Done a great job for Baltimore. Great pickup.
And you'll be able to see the Orioles. The late night game, that's late night East Coast, Tuesday night when the Orioles meet the California Angels from Anaheim Stadium. And Mike Messina, one of those young pitchers who's done so well. Well, the Orioles will work that one. That's a strike on the outside. To Jody Reed, 1-2. Frank Greenwell is on deck. In the West, things are really bunched up in the American League. Texas is back behind Minnesota now. The Twins, who have been real hard. Off the glove of Swan through the vacated shortstop hole. Schaefer will have to chase it on the turf. To second, Reed, save. A double on a ball back to the pitcher.
That will happen on AstroTurf because the ball will roll away, and it rolled all the way to shallow left field on the AstroTurf.
Mike Greenwell coming up back in the 5th inning.
There's a ground ball back through the middle. Schaefer the ball should have been caught by Swan. It should have been a double play, and it hit off the edge of his glove. And you see Schaefer chasing it in the shallow left field. By the time he picks it up, Jody Reed has gone to second, and Tony Pena's at third.
Base is with second and third now. Nice play by Reynolds. And he throws out Greenwell. Runners had to hold. Greenwell back in the 5th inning hit the line drive back at Randy Johnson that hit him near the elbow. And that caused Johnson to be taken out of this game. It was just a terrible, sickening moment. But we've got some news about Randy Johnson. The x-rays on his left elbow were negative. It's a bruise on his left elbow, and he will be re-examined. That's the news so far. So far the news is good, and he had 7 strikeouts in his 4 1/3 when he got hit by Greenwell. They are walking Brunansky intentionally here. With 1 out, that will load the bases. With boy, Jack Clark got to take this personally, doesn't he? They're walking a guy to get to the ripper.
To the ripper, you're right. But it's obviously the right move in that now you set up a double play situation if you can get the ground ball.
Why face both of them if you might be able to get out of the inning by facing just one of them?
Yeah, and the trouble is when you face Jack Clark with the bases loaded, it cuts down on your margin for error. Because he is a pretty patient hitter at the plate. He will not often chase a lot of bad pitches. It makes you give him a pitch to hit.
Clark off to a terrible start this year, but he did single home a run in the 7th inning. He struck out twice, walked, and had that RBI single. Ball 1. 5-1, the Red Sox already ahead. This Red Sox team, which has had to scratch and claw for every run it's scored this year. Well, they've got 5 on the board, and they're threatening to get a lot more. They will be in Oakland tomorrow, will the Red Sox. 2-0. And the Mariner bullpen is busy again. There is Calvin Jones once again. Seattle got the day off tomorrow. They go to Cleveland. Dan Warthen, the pitching coach now, is heading out to the mound.
Well, they do not want this to be a 9-1 ball game by giving in to Jack Clark and throwing a fastball down the middle, because he can put a charge into one.
Right after the game now, Sports Center with Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann. We'll have the highlights of Rick Sutcliffe versus the Athletics today. And the Pirates had a turn-back-the-clock game, I guess, against the Giants. Didn't work out too well for their one-loss record. Monica Seles with troubles today at the French Open. And then a Sunday conversation with Chrissy Everett.
I think she was playing Lori McNeil today.
Monica?
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
See, now you know that stuff. You and I should be over there doing that.
Yeah.
We should be in Paris with the French Open. Clark into left center field. Mitchell will have to play it on the bounce. Coming in to score is Pena. Right behind him is Reed. A 2-run single for Clark, and it is 7-1 Boston.
One thing about Jack Clark throughout his career is he has been able to drive in runs and produce runs. He may strike out a lot with the bases empty because he's going for the whole ball of wax, but he does drive in runs. It's a fastball away. Well, that's a great, actually, it's a very good pitch. It was breaking down and in. And Mitchell makes a good play to keep it from bouncing into left center field. More runs scoring, so 2 runs would score on the play.
Jack Clark last year had 28 homers and 87 batted in for the Red Sox. New pitcher coming in. We'll be back. Jones is the 5th Seattle pitcher of the night. He inherits 2 men on. Brunansky at second, Clark at first, and Ellis Burks is the first man he'll face. Calvin has taken some lumps this year. The Seattle bullpen, as a group, has taken some lumps this year. They've had a hard time of it. Ellis Burks, 2 for 3, a run batted in, ball 1. We want to say hello to Tom Hayes. He's the regular tape operator on our Sunday night game of the week on ESPN, and one of the best in the business. He underwent surgery today in New York. He's recovering now in a New York hospital, and we hope that he's doing well. So Joe and I send along all of our best wishes to Tom Hayes. Just not the same without him.
No, you're right. And it was almost not the same without Don Zimmer. He almost got nailed there by Burks.
Thought Zim might have to go to that same hospital for just a second there. Zim had to step lively.
Dwayne Kuiper, former second baseman for Cleveland, has a great quote about Zimmer. He said, "Now that's a perfect baseball body right there."
Zim. He looks, he's a spitting image. He could be the father of John Kruk. We'll see Kruk next Sunday night from the Vet in Philadelphia. We're looking forward to it. I mean, Kruk is, what a show he's been.
He can hit.
He leads the majors in batting. He had 3 hits today. See, is that Zim Jr. there or what? Ozzie and the Cardinals and Kruk and the Phillies, 8 o'clock Eastern next Sunday night. Joe and I can drive fast enough to get there. 3-1. Joe always wants to stop at all the little roadside attractions. 3-1. Ellis Burks had a pretty good night tonight. Walked and scored a run, had an infield hit, stolen base, and hit a line shot double into the left field corner of the 7th to drive home a run. Into left center field, Riley. That is the second out. 2 down in the 8th inning. The runners return. Brunansky back to second. Clark back to first. We're telling you that Bill Plummer's problems with that Mariner bullpen. And last year that bullpen was pretty effective with Billy Swift was one of the anchors. And of course Mike Jackson, both now with the Giants. They have not been able to replace those guys, not even close. Look at that. The worst earned run average by any bullpen. Mike Schooler's back, but he's had problems with his consistency. He's given up 3 or 4 ball games where he's given up leads late. I mean, big time, shockingly. Grand slam to Winfield here one night with 2 strikes and a 7-4 lead. He gave up a grand slam to Burks in Boston the last time they faced Clemens. That game was 2-2 in the 8th inning. They'd held their own with Clemens. Also, Lou Whitaker won a ball game for Detroit with a 3-run, 2-out 9th inning homer. Even Gino Petrali, opening night here, did a 3-run shot. I guess it kind of set the tone, Joe, for the whole season. Opening night, they're leading the Rangers 8-3 in the 8th inning. and the Rangers scored 9 times against the bullpen and won the game ultimately by a score of 12-10. There's Mike Schooler, been one of the top closers around, but he was injured a lot last year. Does not seem to be back at full strength even now, as evidenced by those problems in the late innings a few times. On the other hand, Schooler, to be fair, he does have 10 saves for this ball club.
Yeah.
There were those 4 that he didn't save. 2-1 to Supsick out of Oral Roberts University. High in the air to left, Mitchell. And the side is retired, but 2 more runs are scored for the Red Sox. 7-1 Boston. We go to the last of the 8th. When in Seattle, you've got to go down to the Pike Street Market. And they have it all down there. Seafood, fresh fish. They've got the produce market, fresh fruit, fresh produce. That's why you can spend the day just at the Pike Street Market near just above the waterfront area. Beautiful city of Seattle, and we just wonder if we'll be coming back here next year with Sunday Night Baseball, if the Mariners will still be here. There is an offer on the table, but it is far from a sure thing that that offer will be accepted by the other owners in Major League Baseball. So we're all waiting to find out what's going to happen with that. The Mariners, if that offer is ultimately rejected, the Mariners could be moving somewhere else, maybe to Florida. Here is Harold Reynolds to lead it off against Roger Clemens. The 9th place hitter, Briley, and Edgar Martinez will follow. First pitch swinging. Jody Reed, easy play. 1 gone in the 8th. Sports Center right after the ball game. Stay tuned. We know many of you just tuned in saying, wait, 11 o'clock Sunday night, Sports Center. Sutcliffe had 8 innings of shutout ball against the Athletics today. 1 is 7th. Down in Oakland, the Pirates and the Giants had at it in Pittsburgh. Monica Seles with problems at the French Open, and a special conversation, the Sunday night conversation with Chrissy Everett. Here is Greg Briley. Greg Briley, he has a special place in our Sunday night archives. Last year when we were here, they played the longest game in the history of the Kingdome. 5.5 hours plus. The Mariners, falling behind in the 15th inning by a run, won it on a 2-run homer in the last of the 15th by Greg Briley. The wildest games we've ever had. Certainly the longest on Sunday Night Baseball. So Briley's now 1 for 4, and Roger Clemens is rolling right along with a 6-hitter. And there is his career record after Boston has lost a game when Clemens is the pitcher next. Look at that. That's about 75% success.
John, I'd be remiss if I didn't respond to some of the statements that were made this week by, National League President Bill White. I've known Bill White both as a player and as from a fan. He played for the San Francisco Giants, and I've always admired him, as a person. And I guess my only response would be, when Bill White talks, I think people should listen. That's the type of person he is. He doesn't cry wolf. He doesn't say a lot of things, and when he does say them, they should be taken to heart, and they're very important because he's a very intelligent person, very nice, genuine human being, and I feel for him for the situation that he says that he's in now as National League President. So I just wanted to say that, and I really think that we should listen to what he has said.
1 ball and 2 strikes. White made a comment that I guess it was a convention, and to the effect that he has had to deal with a lot of people in baseball who are bigoted and or racist. And he didn't name names, but a lot of people in baseball are not very pleased with those remarks. Edgar Martinez becomes the 6th strikeout victim of Roger Clemens, meanwhile. And we're heading to the 9th. 7-1 Boston.
A former player or whatever, and you have to go ask some of these people for interviews to ask them to do a favor for you. So I know what you mean.
Sports Center with the Sunday night conversation right after the game. All the highlights of the day in sports. I can almost hear the theme now. Here's Mike Schooler on the pitch now for the Seattle Mariners. He is the closer of the ball club, and his numbers are very uncloser-like. 6.05 is his earned run average. And in 19 and a third innings, he's allowed 4 home runs. And all of them, of course, big.
Right. Then you may wonder why he would be pitching in a 7-1 ball game. Well, you know, it's going to take a while for him to get that earned run average back to respectability. And you want to give him a chance to gain more confidence, you know, in himself. You know, he has to have had his confidence shaken by the way that he has pitched so far this year. So you give him an opportunity to go out and pitch, you know, 1 inning without any pressure, so to speak, so that he can just relax and maybe find his rhythm again and get back to the Mike Schooler of years past.
Well, and also they have the day off tomorrow. He hasn't worked for a while. Usually these guys need that frequent work to stay sharp. I know John Franco, the Mets, feels that he's been sharper this year because he's worked more frequently, more regularly. Naring the hitter, and that is high. We were telling you earlier about Schooler with those 4 home runs, and every one of them was a game-winning home run against him. That's foul. 1 ball, 2 strikes. We're telling you about them, and here's the Grizzly list. Opening night, April the 6th, Petrali and Winfield. What a 2 strikes and 2 down, 7-4 grand slam. And then the next night with the Tigers in, it was 7-2 when the inning started. It was 7-4 again, or rather 6-4 this time. Then Whitaker went deep. Strike 3. Naring is down, and then Burns hit that grand slam that broke a tie game open in Boston back on May the 20th. That was the night that the Mariners faced Clemens at Fenway Park. And here is Luis Rivera. You know, I guess a manager's worst nightmare. A lot of things that give managers nightmares. The worst one would be to have your closer, the man you hand the ball to in the 9th, and you say, go out there and the game's over. And he's not getting it done.
Right. Well,
Dennis Eckersley was 18 for 18 this year with Oakland.
Well, if you're talking about a different animal there.
1 ball and no strikes to Rivera. He singled home 2 runs back in the 2nd. Gave Boston a lead that they have never given up. Greg Harris is up in the bullpen. Now, Clemens has given them 8 innings tonight. He's thrown 108 pitches. Is there any need for him to go out and pitch 1 more inning just to say he got another complete game?
That's a very good point.
2-0 the count. And 2-1. Jeff Reardon, it's no need for him to come into this ball game. Reardon closing in on Raleigh Finger's all-time saves record. And he's out there just in case. Sitting in the middle out there with the beard. Reardon, one of the best late relievers ever. He's telling us before the game, maybe you saw it during baseball tonight, about how difficult it is having to come in after Clemens.
Yeah.
And they've been seeing such hard stuff from Clemens all night. He says, my stuff isn't that hard. So I got to throw a lot of breaking balls, and I got to be real sneaky to get these guys out when I'm coming in behind Roger. Doesn't look like we're going to see Reardon tonight. 3-2 now to Luis Rivera. 7 runs and 12 hits for the Red Sox. Boston came out here, swept the Angels 3 in a row. Lost the first 2 here. With a win tonight, they'll be 4-2 on this trip. 3 games left in Oakland. Ball 4, Rivera draws a walk for the 2nd time tonight.
If you notice the statistics, when Schooler came in, he had also walked 11 hitters. He's been, you know, walking a lot of hitters, setting up these long home runs that he's been giving up. And he was actually missed badly with most of those pitches in that sequence.
Playing with a losing ball club. Mariners never had a winning record until last year in their history. Schooler had 30 saves in 1990 and 33 the year before that. Become a real dependable closer for the late innings. And then he had injury problems. And he hurt his right shoulder in late August of 1990. He had a subluxation of the right shoulder, and you know what that means.
You know what that means.
Don't give me too much credit. Tony Pena, the hitter. Pena's had 2 hits tonight. The Red Sox keep looking, I'm sure, for all kinds of hopeful signs that this slump and that slump will soon be coming to an end. And I'm sure they're more hopeful that Jack Clark's slump will come to an end than Tony Peña's. The hitting aspect is not really the reason Peña's in there. Just foul. They're also looking to get Wade Boggs back in there. He was showing signs of getting it going. He's hitting home runs. They'd moved into the #3 spot in the order, but then he thinks he might have hurt himself a couple of weeks ago with a headlong slide into second on a steal against these Mariners. He got an inflammation of his ulnar nerve in his right elbow. He said he woke up the next morning and it was just all swollen up. He'd never seen anything like it. He thought he'd caught some dread disease.
You're using all these doctor terms. Do you write those types of subscriptions that you can't read? Prescriptions?
I understand this stuff. You speak medical talk.
Ulnar nerve, sublination, and all this stuff.
Come on, Joe. You live that stuff. Hey, I've been with Jim Palmer a lot. And it is now 2-2 to Tony Peña. Well, Boggs will take batting practice before the game in Oakland tomorrow, and if all goes well, he'll be back in the lineup against the Athletics. The Athletics have their own injury problems right now. I was there this weekend. Ricky Henderson's been out for a few days with a hamstring sprain, and Bob Welch had to go on the disabled list yesterday. Popped up. Valley. And that is the second out. Peña's 2 for 5. We go to the top of the order for Jody Reed.
Second baseman Jody Reed.
Reed is 2 for 4 with a walk today. Runner at first, that is Rivera, talking to Al Bumbry, or being talked to by Al Bumbry. 7-1, Boston ahead. Here's Jody Reed. He's hitting .303. It's funny, I mean, Boston's always a contender. This guy always hits about .290 with 40-something doubles, but you don't hear much about it.
Right. Well, he's a good, steady player.
Edgar Martinez to Harold Reynolds, forcing Rivera. We're going to see Ken Griffey Jr. one last time. Kevin Mitchell and O'Brien, the powers coming up. 7-1, Boston. Clemens, we'll see him somewhere down the road. He is all finished for the night, Joe. And it was vintage Roger Clemens.
Well, he just had an interesting conversation with Tony Peña, and he was showing how he was holding the pitch. And actually, I think he was talking about the one that Griffey that he didn't pull across very well.
There you see it, 108 pitches for the night. With the score 7-1, they'll give the ball to Greg Harris. Last Tuesday in Anaheim, similar situation. Roger went 8 innings and had thrown only 91 pitches, but they took him out for the 9th inning as well. Not a bad idea. Why tax the arm of Roger Clemens? Earlier this year, one of his worst games of the season, he gave up 6 runs, and they had him pitch a complete game. But now Hobson picking spots to get him out of there.
Greg Harris has a fastball and a real good curveball. His curveball is probably his best pitch.
He gets a lot of strikeouts with that curveball. Griffey Jr. has homered and doubled tonight, 2 for 3. Mitchell is on deck. And it is 2-0. In Boston, this Red Sox pitching staff has been a savior. And that includes the bullpen, and they're pushing the notion that Greg Harris is one of maybe the top right-handed setup man in the American League. High pop-up up there against that baseball-colored dome, and Brunansky didn't have any trouble with it. He played a lot of dome fly balls at the Metrodome over the years.
There's a look at the dome.
The ball goes up there with that Delaware River mud on it, and it looks it's almost the same color. So Griffey is retired. Here is Kevin Mitchell. I feel bad for Kevin Mitchell, Joe.
Well, I do too, except that I know that, you know, he's had some great years, and he will, you know, I'm sure he'll get it going. It's just a matter of adjusting in his mind more than anything else.
I feel bad as a baseball fan.
Right.
I want him to hit 50.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Watching him in batting practice, I mean, the ball was really jumping off his bat the same way it has always jumped off, so there's nothing physically wrong with his swing. There's the problem right there. It was a breaking ball. It was a ball, and he just went after it.
And Rivera throws him out. 2 men down for the Mariners in the 9th. Stay tuned. Right after the ball game, we've got Sports Center for you. Joe, I'm anxious to see those Cardinals again. Saw them on Memorial Day at Busch Stadium. They made a thrilling comeback in the late innings against the Dodgers. They got some speed. They very strong defense. It's an exciting ball club. They had surged to the top when last I saw them, although the Dodgers put it to them a couple of days there.
I haven't seen them since opening day myself, and you know, they do have a good ball club, though. They're solid all the way around.
O'Brien, this could do it. Nearing. And the Red Sox have avoided the sweep. They're 4-2 out here on the coast, heading for Oakland. Roger Clemens wins his 8th. He is tied with Texas' Kevin Brown for the Major League lead in victories, and Clemens was excellent tonight. Final score, the Red Sox 7 and the Mariners 1. Next week, we'll see you in Philadelphia. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Philadelphia Phillies. Don't miss it, 8 o'clock Eastern. Coming up next is Sports Center. Now from Seattle, this is John Miller. For Joe Morgan, thank you for being with us. Now, good night from Seattle.